your home nurse.
But they just voted.
But she had a home nurse actually. Yeah, in the last year she did. And did he decide what she wants to do?
And I'm of the 5 kids, there are 4 of us now surviving, and I'm the baby, but I'm the only one he'll listen to. So I had to go, so here are your options.
So did he pick an option?
He did, and we've got him on daily home nursing visits
Yeah, that's good.
to visit after he wakes up, make sure that he's had his meds,
Right.
make sure that he's had a couple of meals. But my brother just threw gas in the fire. He goes, and we're taking your keys.
They parked you? Because he still
He
drive.
still drives.
Wow. That's real freedom.
The joys of
Driving
telling
in your 90s, that's great.
the joys of telling your father, one, oxygen is not temporary, this is permanent.
The friend's mother.
Sounds like some of the stuff you've been going through.
Yeah, my mother's not on oxygen.
so. So I guess we can start discussion. Do we each call to order a meeting of the work session?
The gavel, you must use the gavel.
That's a lot of power there. Fingers.
Yes.
And if anybody gets out of control?
That's why I
Ever
sit
seen
down,
Three Stooges? That's how they do.
that's why I sit down here.
Call the discussion for the
You're
work.
too far away.
I call the discussion for the work session in order. Would you like to introduce this issue?
I'll start it off. The board this past week has asked for an additional discussion regarding Community Park East. Not knowing what the purpose of the discussion was, I just gave the board the history, which dates back to the approval of a work program for ProStack, the approval of the 2009 Conservation Trust Fund budget, which included the largest allowance was for planning funds for the purposes of identifying the location and extent of 3 additional recreational amenities. And then most recently, I believe it was the second meeting in July, the board reviewed the first conceptual plan for Community Park East. You saw the proposed layout on the 38 acres located east of Rock Creek Parkway between Saddlebrook and Horizon. You saw the incorporation of the 3 new recreational amenities that ProStack has been championing, including disc golf, dog park, and BMX bike. As we discussed during the budget review, when we were expecting to see this again, the board's guidance back in July was, we like what we see, firm it up, bring it back when there's something else to look at. And as we discussed during budget, we anticipated bringing back more well-defined, what I would call design development, probably 50 to 70% engineered plans in February. I don't have much more to offer than that, but that's how we got here, that's where we're at, and would be glad as best we can to answer any questions the board might have.
So I'll take credit for, or blame for requesting this element on the agenda. And it's partly because it seemed like there was a wide range of what I was hearing being discussed, and I wanted to, and I know that the board had some initial reactions, or maybe their initial and maybe their second tier or something, anyway, reactions to what appeared to be sort of budget creep or that sort of thing. And so I thought if we could at least see what the options are and where they're coming from and what the sort of levels are, that would help us all know where we may or may not want to go forward, and to confirm for ourselves as well as others that whether it is or isn't a done deal, which I suspect, from my point of view, it's not. So, but I don't know where others are on that issue. So, I don't know. I did submit a data request, and I suspect you may. I kind of didn't expect this to be on such a quick agenda. I'm glad it was, but I don't know if you had a chance to respond to that data request.
No.
So-
I received it at 1 o'clock this morning when I got off a plane from Los Angeles.
I sent it also, though, to a couple of staff, just to hope that could be addressed. So I might actually take this working session literally and work on the whiteboard behind you. So that might be just where this goes.
Sure.
Are there questions, though, from the rest of the board before we head down that direction?
The only thing was that, I know, again, I just asked this evening, but I was just trying to find out what was the work plan. So the board actually approved the work plan, and I just wanted to be clear that wasn't approving the park, which I think there's some confusion over. We approved their work plan, we didn't approve the park.
Of course not.
So I've been hearing the same thing as well, that it's a done deal, and that really bothers me because
I apologize for snickering, but we heard the same thing about a land transfer. We heard the same thing about the roundabout, and my discussion would be, nothing's a done deal until you approve a contract to do something. And candidly, nothing's a done deal because anything that gets built can get unbuilt. So I've heard those same comments. I don't know where they come from. I certainly don't give them credence. The board has made no decisions. The board has said, we like it, we like what we see, continue with your planning. That's the extent of quote-unquote, the done deal.
So then what I was saying before was that we did get a lot of complaints that we didn't have enough work sessions beforehand, and there were talk of things going around that were done deals. So that's why I supported Lisa's desire to bring this forward and just talk about some of the things that are going on with this and what's happened so far. But again, I couldn't find this on the website information as far as ProStack's language in their plan, but maybe Jim will have that or something like that, exactly what the language was.
Well, again, the extent of the planning to date was the plan that was submitted to you in July, which at the time the board was supportive, and the guidance to both ProStack and staff was continue with your efforts in this regard. The variables that you saw, and recognize this is very, very preliminary engineering, but the variables was there was a $360,000 option and a $380,000 option, depending on the extent of the BMX track. But no additional design work has happened. In fact, until the board approves a budget and grants additional financial authority for the project, we're kind of at a standstill. That's why I told the board during the budget review process that they weren't going to be seeing anything again until the end of February.
Okay. Please.
Yeah, and my take on this is that it is not a done deal. There's been a lot of work that has been put into to bring us to this point. So I just want to make sure that we balance between, throwing the baby out with the bathwater, too. I'm glad that we're talking about it and we're being pretty open. There was a meeting that ProStack had a couple of months ago that was open to the public. The people came, gave their feedback, some in favor, some against. So I think this has been a pretty transparent process, but I'm glad we're having this meeting.
One of the
Okay,
guidances
good.
the board made back in July was how are we going to contact those that live in closest proximity? And your instruction to ProStack was please hold a public engagement meeting. I don't remember the exact date, but I believe it was in the third week of September. During a regular ProStack meeting, they devoted their entire agenda to just that. We had specific notices to everybody in Horizons, Saddlebrook, and as a result of some additional input, we also invited those that live on the west side of Rock Creek Parkway in closest proximity to that meeting. I believe there were 18 to 20-some people in attendance there. The feedback that I had received, both from ProStack and staff, was that it was generally favorable. People liked what they saw and heard, but they also recognized that it was very, very preliminary in terms of there's not detail or specifics.
Okay. So maybe I can just ask some specific questions to sort of update myself, but also anybody else who's been tracking or not tracking or whatever. And so I'll start maybe just with some inventory of the types of amenities on the table and their approximate costs. And then, so there's a BMX issue, facility, park, whatever
Yes.
you want to call it. And do you know about how much that's budgeted for?
No, I don't know if
In the
Juanita
current
has
design?
a specific number. No.
Could
Yeah,
Ms. Dominguez let us know?
I don't know that we have the data available. We haven't priced out. I'm telling you.
Where's the 360 versus 380 and all that?
That depended on, those were allowances set aside.
Specific, are you,
Mark, you're saying.
Right.
for the BMX park? Well, I have here, there are three concepts. Concept 1 is $70,700. Concept 2 is the same. Concept 3 is $96,600.
Okay. And how about the next amenity, the
Which one?
The golf?
Frisbee golf?
Golf. Okay, concept 1 is $13,750. Concept 2 is the same. Concept 3 is $24,000.
And dog?
And that, there are two concepts. Concept 1 comes in at $184,420. Concept 2 is $187,160. There's also Phase 2. These are Phase 1. That, what I just read was Phase 1. Phase 2 is another $103,000. And I'm not sure if that is added on top of it or includes the $187,000. If anyone knows that.
On top?
On top.
On top. And then, I guess part of my question comes also from, we have some idea of what these total costs are, and there's talk about possibly working with GoCo grants that might cover some part of it or not, and what's the story? And maybe there are some other grants that have to be shovel-ready, and which of that might relate here. And then my other, and, sorry, this doesn't, okay. And
When I get a question, I'll give you an answer.
yeah, and so and then the other issue was how does the urban drainage fit in here? What's the amount we already have in the budget for urban drainage, and how much that might be obtainable from grants or other things, or enhanced by grants or other things? I'm looking for sort of what are the options we've been looking at? What's the response under any of those options? How much is town, what are we thinking that town might be liable for versus what we're hoping for or counting on leveraging through other grants?
Again, we reviewed this during the budget, but for the benefit of those that didn't sit through the budget presentations. The proposed budget includes roughly $363,000 for the entire Community Park East plan. Of that amount, we anticipate applying for a $150,000 GoCo grant. Though that application cycle is in the spring, we probably won't know until late summer whether we're successful in getting it or not. Though there have been some discussions with GoCo, and they seem to be supportive of the concept. They like big, flashy projects like this. The balance of the town's contribution would be roughly the $210,000 differential between the 363 and the 150. The proposed budget before you has allocated that, based on the recommendation of your ProStack, over 2010, 2011, roughly at 100 and 100. That's all of our lottery proceeds devoted to recreational amenities over the course of the next 2 years. Obviously, if we're not successful with the GoCo grant, we need to revisit either the phasing of the project, the extent of the project, but that's the financial plan that's before you, and hopefully for ratification later tonight during the regular board meeting.
And I'm not trying to dominate, I just had a whole sort of host of things I wanted to
You
really
also asked
understand
about
how
urban
they fit
drainage.
together. Urban drainage was my next.
There's an existing contract that we've entered into with urban drainage that calls for some creek improvements in that particular area. Our existing financial obligation is $100,000. It's a 50-50 program between us and urban drainage. So urban drainage is anticipating $200,000 worth of improvements to the creek channel area, of which our contribution is $100,000. That's paid for not out of Conservation Trust. That's paid for out of the Stormwater Fund.
And I guess I held a coffee buzz the other day, and lots of questions came to me about this, and so I care about, finding out some of those questions. And one of the questions also related to where the dog park was in relation to the urban drainage and the creek and that sort of stuff. Can you give me some idea on that?
Again, going back to the plan that was shared with you both this weekend and the one that was the same plan that was shared with you in July, it shows that the dog park component was intended to be on the north side of the creek. There's two different elements, both fenced, but both on the north side of the creek bed. There's also a bridge across the creek that would lead you into the area where the other amenities would be.
And how does the dog park relate to the area that either is being redirected or cleaned or the rest of it treated, I guess, if we can call it whatever urban drainage?
I don't know how does it relate. I'm not sure.
Is it placed there? Yeah.
That's 9 and 10.
And so isn't that part that urban drainage is,
what's
my
just-
point is, isn't that part that urban drainage is trying to reclaim, and aren't we putting a dog park right on that?
No.
Next to it?
Yeah, urban drainage doesn't, they don't do reclamation, they do stream bank stabilization, things like that.
And so they had to do a bunch of that already there, right? I mean, they had done it. And so is it the same type of work, do you know, that they're planning on?
You know exactly what they're doing, I don't remember.
And when is
It
the
has to do
time
with-
frame?
I think it's 2010, but
2010.
So, but do we know if this would in any way be a conflict with what they intend to
they
do?
usually actually like doing this together, so I don't think this would be a conflict. They would just like to program it
Do you have
together.
any? Kurt's got some information based on his discussions with urban drainage.
That would be great to hear.
Yeah. Yep.
Thanks. Thanks for exploring this with me. No, please wait. Okay.
Kurt, as a start, how about your conversations with urban drainage, the sequencing, that kind of stuff? Potential impacts?
Good evening, Kurt Kohr, Public Works Director. So I heard a couple of questions. The first question was, what work has urban drainage already done in the area? There has been some work. This is kind of, I use the bridge maybe as the dividing line. There's been urban drainage work done in this area, closer to Rock Creek Parkway, in the form of stream bank stabilization and some drop structures. Right about in this area, I don't know if you walk through here, there's a small concrete structure, like a drop structure. So that's an example of some of their work. Second question is, what area would the new urban drainage project be in? What areas may get realigned, and how does that affect the dog park? Any areas, this from the bridge to our town limits would be the area of the project. And that area is kind of being analyzed as we speak. Urban drainage working through their design, determine what areas will get stabilized and what won't. It's kind of a function of the budget we'll have to work with and what the worst case areas are versus the medium case versus the minor cases. The dog park is in this area. It has not moved. And we have had conversations with urban drainage about where the dog park goes and how that'll complement the urban drainage project, and 2, where the bridge will go and how that can take place during the urban drainage project too. Does that answer those questions?
Yeah, and I guess part of it is also, is it good, prudent, great, I don't know, to have a dog park next to the creek? It doesn't seem great to me, so on first blush. So that's, I guess, where I'm just coming from on it.
I think having it next to a creek, having it next to any drainage, you have erosion potential with the dog park.
And
in the
maybe a
case
little
of the
contamination.
what's that?
And maybe a little pre-contamination problem for people who aren't too prudent or good with their dogs.
I think part of the maintenance plan, and Ms. Dominguez can correct me, but there is going to be maintenance on the dog park that will involve picking up of feces that hasn't been collected.
Really?
And I
I
guess
think that's been discussed at several meetings prior.
well, the concern I have is that it's not just the feces, but it's the amount of urine as well. I mean, dogs typically like to mark when they go into those kind of places, so that's one of my concerns from an environmental standpoint. And what it would do as far as, I mean, that is a huge corridor that goes all the way down under the freeway, connects to Rock Creek Farms, and it would be a travel area for all types of animals. And so my concern is that putting a dog park along there would really deter a natural movement of animals along there, especially, and then from an environmental standpoint, just urine and everything else flowing into the stream.
Is there a problem with pulling it back from the creek? Why
Well,
was it put along
we
the
are
creek?
limited. There's a fence along the north side here along the wastewater treatment plant. So the thought behind this portion of land was it was kind of a irregular shaped piece of ground that was kind of tucked away and might be a good spot to dog park. The environmental concerns were discussed. I don't think you'll have urine running off. I mean, the ground's going to soak that up. It may affect the turf areas if they receive heavy amounts, but I don't think you'll have that run off into the creek. If anything, you have the effect of feces if it's not collected. But we didn't think it was we didn't think it was a red flag not to do it. Part of the approach, and one of the things we discussed before, is there'll be an environmental study as part of any GOCO application. So those types of things would be looked at in greater detail and reported back on.
Yeah. If staff and if the committee are looking for some initial reactions and guidance, I'm not thrilled about seeing a dog park right next to a creek, and so just FYI, that's neither here nor there. Sorry, no. So that, and planning on having staff pick up other people, the dog stuff just doesn't seem like the optimal situation, so, on a ongoing basis. Maybe others disagree.
Nobody said staff.
Okay. Who
Like most
volunteers?
of our work it's done by contract.
Okay, staff, or paid people, right?
More questions? I guess I would.
I'll pick up
If you
the-
have enough, I would just run through all your questions
Oh.
and then, if that sounds fair, just a short answer.
Okay. So that's an issue. And then I guess, if I can, one more thing on the dog park. And I know that right now the plan is to be looking at it as a turf dog park. And, I know you guys have probably talked to a lot of other people, but I talked to a couple of communities in the area, and they just said it's so hard to keep up turf. The turf is a much more expensive way to go, that crusher fines are a way that a lot of dog parks have gone. And you're looking at chain link or nicer fence, and you're looking at some crusher fines, and the upkeep is low, and you don't have, and you can either have water or not have water. Probably water, probably a little shade, but not. But this alternating the turf thing seems like a really huge investment for maybe not as much as dog people really think they maybe need, and what the dog parks around the area, some of the dog parks that are pretty successful seem to be having. So I guess that whole issue of turf and alternating areas and all that, it just seems to really add to the expense, and to me, it just doesn't seem worth the expense. And it's, I had heard at one point like $250K, and I guess this is $280K or $90K if you look at the total first and second phase elements, and that seems like a really huge investment for something that could be handled only slightly less well, I think, from people's enjoyment of it through a crusher fines type, low maintenance, low everything dog park.
Yeah, I mean, sustainability was one of the things we want to keep in mind through the original concept development of this. And this is not, by any means, preconceived idea that came from staff. And I guess I was in another role when I developed this, but this came from comments from the committees of the town. This was not, the first meeting we had, we just kind of showed the lay of the land, which was kind of this type of stuff here.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't say where we wanted anything or what it should look like or what size. And there was a rather lengthy and large discussion between members of the ProStack, OStack, and the public that kind of said, hey, we want these types of sizes, we want these types of looks, we like turf, we don't like turf, and on and on. And these concepts came out of that, what I felt was a fairly heavy community process. So, this is a reflection of what the community said at those snapshots at the time. And maybe if it's changing, we need to understand that.
I think I only have one more sort of major question, then maybe we can cycle. And that is, so we're looking at a town investment, and we're looking at maybe some GoCo grants. Are there other grant sources that we are considering, exploring, or even, blue skying that are sort of also leading to some other possible options, designs, enhancements, et cetera, for the park? Or is there nothing else that is being considered at this point?
Yes. First of all, we've exhausted stimulus. There's nothing, golf course, disc golf, anything recreational that is receiving stimulus dollars, though we explored it. Apparently, it's a red flag, black eye. They don't want seeing federal stimulus dollars going to repair Pebble Beach.
To what?
To be repairing Pebble Beach.
That's a famous golf course.
No, I know Pebble Beach. I just didn't think disc golf was considered Pebble Beach. So, okay.
We've explored it and have been told in no uncertain terms federal stimulus dollars are not being made available for these kinds of projects. The only other discussion that at least I'm aware of, based on our conversations within staff, have been some additional conversations with GoCo about some accelerated grant funding. Very preliminary in nature. But anyway.
And can you talk about those discussions a little
I
bit?
just told you about as much as I know. I had a conversation.
Level of magnitude?
I don't even know that there's been any discussion along those lines.
Things that they encourage as features to be eligible
Shovel
for
ready.
the money?
Shovel ready.
And so if there is some such set of funds, is it only applicable for parks? Is it applicable to things that we've prioritized, like community centers or other things?
First of all, GOCO money will be based on parks, period.
Including the accelerated?
Yes.
And it will be because that's all that's eligible?
That's
Or will it
all.
be because that's where you were heading?
No.
Okay.
That's what they're funding. They're not building buildings.
And would they fund something like, let's say, the disc golf and the BMX park? If you
Portion.
didn't have the dog park there, would they still fund a portion of this project or not?
One of the things that makes our, and it's a very competitive process. You've received GOCO monies in the past. You've lost applications. It's not being competitive. One of the things that makes this particular one competitive is the fact that we've got funds tentatively budgeted, so a large match, a well-defined plan, and multiple attributes. It's one thing to go in and say, we want a field, we want an element. Here you're getting multiple elements, and there's multiple bang or bigger bang for their buck. You know, if we walk away with a $400,000 project and we're successful in getting $150 from them, they can point to it and say that's a $400,000 project that we leverage with our smaller investment. So yeah,
Well, I guess what I'm asking is if it's a smaller project,
Does it
would they
pre-
still fund or possible fund it?
potentially, and I'm guessing probably at a lesser amount.
Right, obviously. Okay.
I think those are a good set.
Okay, so I'm thinking a completely different way. I mean, it's nice to create a big park with lots of amenities and stuff, but I'm looking at it in terms of timing and if we have money in the bank for it. So first of all, I think it would be great timing to do one, but not all three. I think as far as the amount of money that we have available with the Conservation Trust Fund is what, 98,000?
Roughly 100,
Roughly?
between 100 and 105 per year is what we
Okay.
receive in lottery proceeds.
So if we're really that keen on having the whole entire park programmed like this, then maybe we should set aside Conservation Trust Fund dollars until we reach pretty close to what we need to be able to pay for it. I mean, that's my thoughts on it. I don't think it's an absolute need right now. Definitely, and to be honest, I think the dog park is not a regional draw I care to have people come to our town. I mean, there's Louisville, there's Broomfield, there's Alpharetta, I think there's one in Lafayette. They're all within 10, 15 minutes away. I can go take my dog, and I do. But I'm not going to take my dog here because it kind of defeats the purpose. I'd rather just drive them over there than walk them over there. If I'm going to walk, I'm going to walk all the trails. So that's my thoughts on the dog park. I don't even recall it being in the budget at any point. Other than a few years ago, there was a movement. Someone, I think was from OSAC and PROSAC, that had a movement of trying to get the dog park off the ground. And he's not even here anymore. And I haven't heard much of a movement about the dog park since. So I'm kind of wondering where the dog park came. I get the BMX park. A lot of people have been asking that. It's good for the kids. I get that. Disc golf, a lot of people have come forward with that, and I get that as well. And that would be a good draw. And those two things, to me, would be something that teens could do, something that all ages can do. But not everyone is going to go to the dog park. It's basically, Fido and his master going there. The whole family doesn't typically go to the dog park. I don't know. Maybe some people do, but we don't. And I don't usually see a whole family at the dog park. It's the dog and the master. So I just kind of wonder where the dog park came from.
Came from your PROSTAC.
Yeah.
It's been on their list with.
But when, was it actually budgeted? When?
It will be if
Because I remember the BMX at 50 grand being budgeted, and I remember the disc golf being budgeted somewhere around 15 grand. But I don't remember a dog park.
Yeah.
Jim Payne, 2475 Clayton Circle, Chairman of ProStack. The original concept before the GOCO grant came in, which is a special grant for lottery money, was to take, in an agreement with the board, to take our approximately $100,000 a year from CTF, Conservation Trust Fund, lottery dollars, and accumulate that to build projects. There was pretty good enthusiasm from the board on what we're now calling the mountain bike skills course and the disc golf.
Correct.
The dog park had come up earlier, a year earlier. This all goes back 2 years, and the dog park went back 3 years. The dog park has been in the projected
The wish list.
use of, we can argue over the words, but it's not I understand it's not a confirmed budgeted amount, it's sort of an earmark, but it's been in there for probably 2 years at $215,000 out in 2013. So we had the relatively low-ticket bike park and disc golf in 2010 and 2011. The dog park, still relatively undefined, out in 2013. What changed was when RG got involved and we began looking at it comprehensively so we could find locations for all of these planned features. And the idea of the GOCO grant came up, the $150,000. The way that to maximize our chance of getting that GOCO grant was to put them together, which had other advantages anyway. And that meant bringing in the dog park. And it allowed us, with the GOCO grant, if we get that $150,000, to bring the dog park in. But you're right, the public advocacy for that, the active public advocacy with people coming in here and petitions with hundreds of names and all that, is now 3 years old. No question about that. I mean, I can't fix that. I've reached out at Chili Fest, where we had a booth, and at other community events to get whatever feel I can. And I can just say I've gotten a very, very positive feedback for it. There are a lot of dog owners, but I can't, there's no question that it also came up relatively high in the surveys we did when we were looking at a bond initiative about two and a half years ago. It also came out very highly there in the formal survey that we did. But all that's changed is bringing that in from 2013 into the next 2 or 3 years, because the GOCO grant would require us to complete the whole project within, I think it is, 2 or 3 years. And again, when we say that it's a town investment of $200-something thousand, it's all lottery money. Now, we can argue that the annual Conservation Trust Fund contribution is, what's the word? I'd say fungible, but can be used in other purposes. But the understanding with the board, the direction we got, was to work with that money for our projects, and anything beyond that would have to find its own funding. We've done that. There's not a dime of taxpayer, I won't say dime, there's no substantial tax money, superior money in this project.
Well, I'm also curious, if you want to talk money then. I was adding up everything here, and I'm adding up $548,000.
The sheets that you have, the presentation that you're pulling the numbers off of, are concept plans that RG prepared. Those numbers are not necessarily our budgeted numbers, and I have to stress that not any design work has been done other than the roughest concept and sort of fitting into the site. So none of that work's been done. All of these numbers are changeable. All of them can come down or go up depending on the grant situation, the other monies that come in. So the actual number that's in there now is $363,000. And the basic cost of the amenities has really not changed substantially since this started 3 years ago, with the exception of the additional phase of the dog park, which would have not just the fenced turf area, but the second part of it on your maps, which is a off-leash run area. And the idea was to provide dog owners, because they're pretty much split, on having both of those options for a dog park.
So when you say 363, all these different numbers kind of get confusing, but the amenities, when I look at the amenities, that's another 78,000 plus the bridge is another 63,000.
The bridge, now you're getting into
Are
urban drain.
those included in the 363?
Now you're getting into urban drain. The bridge is an urban drainage cost.
Okay, because I'm looking at this as a whole that I was given, and including all the different costs.
The $363,000 that was budgeted for this particular project, I'll give you a little breakdown of that. Disc golf is $13,750. The bike park is $61,700. The dog park is $257 and some change. Park signage, kiosks, those kind of things come in at $14,000. And then we've got design and engineering that add up to the $363,000.
Okay. So these other amenities are just thoughts on where we could go with that? Is that what these were on here?
They're concepts. They're the concepts that we brought forward.
But they're not included in the whole plan. They're alternatives.
They're all alternatives. There's $363,000 that has been allocated. We haven't gotten to that specific detail of the design.
So
That's what Mr. Randall is talking about when we come back at 50 to 70% design in February. We'll have a better idea of where those prices will come in at less than 363.
okay. So you're at this point thinking 363 is your highest number.
It's the budget number.
It's the budget number. Okay. Basically, let me ask this. I'm going to play incredibly dumb here, but who budgeted that number and when?
Conceivably, depending on what you do later this evening, the board will have budgeted that number. That's what you've been discussing since August 3rd when you received the budget. You had the worksheets.
But when did it get put in, earmarked? That's what I want to know.
The budget was submitted to the board on August 3rd. The departmental submissions were turned into my office roughly May 25th, so somewhere within that period of time.
If I may, I went back and tracked these numbers all the way back to 2008 when this whole process started. All of these have been in, and I'm not saying that means anything conclusive, but they've all been in the various budgets and projections and proposals that have been before you. And I'm not going to go through it now, but I'd be happy to. I can track those all the way back to 2008. The basic cost of the amenities has not changed with the exception of that additional phase of the dog park, proposed phase of the dog park. The basic numbers have remained the same. What changed was the phase 2 of the dog park and some design and engineering fees that were not in the original individual proposals for each of these three amenities. When we put it together in one concept, then we had to allocate some design and engineering costs, which was like 10%, I think, is the standard number.
Okay. Well, I'm going to conclude.
Okay.
I'm just going to conclude very quickly. As a board member, I can't get past the cost. I'm not even looking at design anymore. I can't even get past the cost. It's like sticker shock.
Even if it's not our money?
Even if.
Okay. All right.
I just have a real problem with that. And then, 2, as an OSAC member, I can't even get past working around the creek corridor. I mean, that's like a red flag for me. So when I look at those 2 things that I'm representing for the town, I can't get past that. So there is where I'm at.
Okay.
Someone else?
I was just going to say, Are you $257,000 for a dog park? I'm sorry, but that just blows my mind. You know what? I have been one of the biggest supporters of dog parks, and you know that, Jim. It's just $250,000 for a dog park. I don't care whose money it is. We're going to have to maintain it. I'm just shocked. You know what? I appreciate that ProStack has done this work, and believe me, I look at the amenities, and I completely agree that yes, the bike park is something needed, the frisbee golf, and there has been a strong movement. I mean, I don't think you're wrong in that there has been a strong movement for a dog park, but $250,000 for a dog park?
That's not out of line. I mean, there's
not out of
there are
line
dog
for
parks in that
what,
range.
though?
You can do it for, originally, way back, we started in the area of 150. I mean, this goes back before any formal numbers or debate or examination was done, but certainly you can do something for 150. You can do nothing and let dogs run through that 30-acre area right now and call it a dog park if you want. But the truth is that the range of parks is in that range. And when Superior does stuff, we generally don't do it on the cheap. We've got infrastructure costs and tap fees and all of that, and we have essentially two parks, two dog parks. There's a fenced-in, manicured part, if you will.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but again, really, what I'm not getting here is proportion of scale, and I'm really blown away that this keeps coming forward with we need to have manicured lawns or watered lawns or we need tap fees. I mean, we're talking about a dog park, and from people that I've talked to, and as a dog park user, the ones that are bare dirt work just fine.
Nice.
And my concern here is that it keeps growing in scale, that this is not in proportion to our community. And the dog park, to me, is a perfect example of that. And so, I appreciate the work that ProStack has done on this. I know how much it is to be on the committees and volunteer your time. But, I keep thinking that this scale is just way out of proportion for our community. And, I have so many other things that I've written as far as costs and everything, but, certainly the ecological impact and all of those things. But my biggest concern here, again, is just the scale of this project and whether it's paid for. You can say that it's not paid directly out of Superior's taxes, but, in one way or another, we are paying for it out of other taxes.
It's lottery funds. It's not.
There are a lot of refunds, but I'm
not a big fan of
Colorado.
lotteries, but that's where those monies are dedicated to go.
And are those
That's
going
the
to
way
go
the
for
lottery's
maintenance?
advertised, so
If we're
that's
going to
what it
have
is.
watered lawns and all of these sorts of things, there's going to be a lot of maintenance. We're lucky in this community that we're not suffering the effects that a lot of other communities are suffering as far as being under budget. But if we keep doing things like that and keep having more maintenance, that's one of the concerns I have, is that we're not going to be able to sustain another economic downturn like we've had. So, we're running out of time, and I know there's a lot of other people here. I'm just giving you my feedback because in a formal session, or I won't even say formal, but informal, I don't think that I've had a chance to say that, even though I've talked with you quite a bit on this. And that's all.
I don't have really any questions about the project. I'm not hearing anything different than I've heard ever before. My comments are really comments, and it's about process. It's something I've said many times. We as a board have problems dealing with public projects and the process we follow. This project, I think we've all heard all of these pieces at one time or another all along, and we've nodded our heads without making a decision, thinking sometime in the future we're going to be asked about this and make a decision. Well, if we have a question about whether we even want the dog park, I think it's incumbent upon us to bring that up and decide that before we waste a lot of time and effort, further time and effort on design and COCO grants and things like that we may not even fundamentally want or think the town should have, and so I don't know how to bring this to a head, but nodding our heads all along and saying sometime in the future we're going to make a decision, and then a lot of time and money has been invested to get to that point, And I understand why people think it's a done deal, because if we sit here and approve a budget that has that money in it, seems like it's a done deal because the budget's there, even though we're all sitting here saying, I haven't approved it. But it's going to be very hard to turn it down, when it comes forward with a design and we have a GOCO grant and all these other things, if we don't particularly want it. So I don't know how to bring that to a head, but I think we need to bring that piece to a head.
Trustee Skumatz?
So that's why I wanted to have this discussion, because I think you need the feedback of where I think, yes, we've been kind of, whatever, I guess you guys are working on some stuff, but you need the feedback to know that, gee, the way you're headed here is not really where a lot of the head nods are as a package thing. For me, I'm with Deborah. I have a real significant problem with us planning something like a dog park in a creek corridor. That just fundamentally seems goofy to me. And I would not be excited about that. I'm not against dog parks, far from it, but I'm very against a $250,000 dog park when you talk to neighboring communities and the cost of a dog park can be couple of $10,000 worth of crusher fines and so much per linear foot for a chain link fence or a little bit of enhanced fence beyond that. It's not $250K, and that to me seems we can start there at least and see if we need anything more. And one of the other things I don't see in this is what's the ongoing O&M. I understand Ms. Dominguez was asked about O&M during the meeting, and it was said that it wasn't very high. Given the kinds of things that I see here, that seems reasonable to me if we're not talking landscaping and all the rest of that stuff. If we have a dog park that's crusher fines, I totally can buy into the fact that O&M is probably low, but let's also remember that we have to worry about what the O&M is when we're looking at an investment in a park as well, and I haven't seen much attention spent on that, and I want to make sure that's part of what we consider. I don't have a problem with some of the individual elements we've been talking about. I have a big problem with a $250,000 dog park, and that's the feedback I think that the committee and the planners need to hear before they go down a long path and then say, you didn't tell us not to do that. Well, we're telling you to consider other options than a $250,000 dog park. So.
But I have to agree with Trustee Cirilli, though. I think this conversation we're having here today perhaps is very important, but perhaps we should have had it 6 months ago or 3 months ago before ProStack goes through tremendous amounts of time and energy and focus and meetings. So we need to, when we have maybe an offset, to talk about the process and how we come about making decisions and giving some direction to everybody else, especially our committees that work so hard for us.
So maybe to go back to the foundations of where we're at, we have 5 minutes. Maybe we can.
But we'd also like to hear from some of the people too. So,
do you?
I think.
Well, we can't. So what we need to get out of this tonight, so we have to make a decision about what we're going to do. I mean, I think the board gave direction about the direction we wanted to proceed when this was presented last time. We said, yep, seems right, go forward and do that. And now we're having a conversation that says, no, actually, we don't like that. So we need to have that conversation tonight before we spend more time on this. So I'm hearing that. I'm not sure what I'm hearing. So we can hear it later. But so I'm in favor of a dog park. I'll put it out there, and I think this is a good location. But I'm hearing that there's not support for that. Is that true?
I don't think there's not support for a dog park, but there's not support for a $250,000 dog park.
And along the creek.
Right.
So that means that not here. Is that true?
Not necessarily.
No,
But
I think
I know where you're going.
Other
but I want
options
to
need to be explored.
I think this is a perfect spot. I think it should go there.
Are the basic?
I think I'm in the
three components
minority,
correct?
but before we start planning more, I need to know where the board is with the dog park.
So,
I need to see another option.
I would be in favor of the BMX park and the disc golf. I think that's needed for our community, and it will be a regional draw, like Trustee Williams said. With the dog park, as far as the ecological aspects, I think we need to do the environmental study that perhaps going, and then have the experts tell us if that's doable or not. So until that happens, I'm neutral, I guess.
Okay, so BMX?
BMX I'm okay with.
Lisa?
I'm okay with. Dog park, I'm a scaled down dog park. In that location, if it is ecologically okay, and I don't think it's necessarily, no, I don't know. I don't know anything about that, so.
Lisa?
BMX started out at a lower price. I don't know if this is the right price or not, but if it's the only price, I'm generally in favor of it. But I always, it seems higher than what was originally discussed.
And the disc golf course.
Same thing.
Okay.
I would say for the disc golf, I think those numbers are pretty close to when the first had all the talk about it. I think I'm okay with that and probably there. BMX, I do have some concerns about the erosion, but it's a little bit more in scale. The dog park, I'm not in favor of the price. I'm not in favor of a watered, manicured dog park, and I'm not in favor of it in that location.
Okay.
But in favor of the dog park.
Yeah,
But I'm in
I mean,
favor
I
of
would
dog
say
park somewhere
that I'm
else.
okay with the dog park and the BMX. It's the way that it's been from the very beginning. I think the price is reasonable. I think the dog park, I don't know about the ecological, I'm not an expert, so I would want to see what the report says. And I don't know if we've ever explored of a different location besides this one, so I guess with the dog park, I need more information.
We
before
couldn't
make a
find
decision.
locations in the past.
Huh?
We haven't been able to find locations in the past.
Well,
We've explored
But
them all.
we've got Cambridge there.
Trustee D'Souza had
So
possible locations, so
I've
she might have.
offered the alternatives several times, so.
And
Trustee Williams.
I have to say that Trustee D'Souza couldn't have said it all better as far as how I feel. I could go a step further with the dog park and say I just can't see any need in our community for a dog park. And, you know, if you want to prove me wrong, go ahead. But I am not in favor in any, especially under the circumstances of Near Creek, manicured, which I've not gone to a dog park yet that has kept up the manicuring. It's ended up being gravel, whatever, dirt.
Get mud here.
So anyway, and then of course the BMX, I am worried about erosion and I'm not sure if that's the correct area for it. So.
Okay, I'm not sure where I'm at. Former trustee Chu, I see you standing and wanting to make a comment.
You know, Jeff Chu, 1959 Cedar Ridge Circle. So, you know, a couple thoughts, and I think having been sitting there before, working with committees, making sure you're not offending people, I think is very tough. And so sometimes you kind of want to be encouraging because good ideas come out of the committees. I think in the process of being encouraging, I think people take a couple good words and they run on those, and some of the not so positive feedbacks they don't necessarily listen to quite as much. So obviously that creates a lot of concern. I think we've always said in the past, make a motion to go forward or not go forward. You guys all know that. Preach to the choir. You know, Rock Creek's a great community as part of a planned development, right? It was put out, laid out a lot of times. There's been a couple areas where quick changes were made. I think we lost some great commercial sites around 88th by quick changes and everything else. This site was, in the 8 years that I was on the board, was not really ever considered for a park. It came in, people said, in fact, I think we spent a couple $100,000 removing prairie dogs to return it to this site. When I looked at a couple of the pictures on a couple of these following slides with respect to a BMX park and everything, it's like, well, we should have done a lot before then if you wanted to have it. We had a completely barren area, and you had little prairie dog mounds, which would have been great BMX or, excuse me, dirt bike training or whatever you want to call it. So it's kind of comical that we're coming back to try to do something that we just spent money. You know, if you want to look at a dog park, I haven't been really strong support for spending a lot of money on a dog park. You know, the level 3 property would be great. It's away from everybody. Nobody has to deal with it. The things I don't see covered here in terms of costs, and I don't know, maybe they are, cost of bridges, cost of parking, cost of landscaping. Let's see, I don't know if there's a fence that has to go along the creek, on the inside of the creek, or on the opposite side of the creek, how close to the creek you can get to put structures in associated with a fence. You know, those are always some of the urban drainage concerns and stormwater drainage issues or questions, right? So obviously dogs swim, they cross creeks, that creek is not full, they're going to go across there. When you look at, what are they called? I keep forgetting, I can never remember what they're called. The Jeffersons, whatever they're called today.
The Horizons?
No, the other one.
Oh, the townhomes.
Saddlebrook, right? Every time we've done anything down there, we end up putting I don't know how many trees we end up giving to the homeowners association to buffer it all, right? So I don't know whether that's strongly been considered. I don't know whether the Saddlebrook HOA has been consulted on this, but certainly that's going to be an issue. I don't know where that road is. The road is meets standards as far as general traffic, especially along these lines, which means I know we paved it a few years ago. I know it's not a highly engineered road. Well, actually, it probably is pretty well engineered because it handled a lot of the heavy trucks for the wastewater treatment plant. But again, it's not really wide. It's not necessarily geared towards the width that you'd want to have. It probably doesn't even meet our road standards for that matter as a public road. So a lot of areas on this site, besides the fact that, this is a gorgeous piece of property. We have a lot of other places. If you want to put a frisbee golf course, frisbee golf, you could run it from Purple Park down along down along Rock Creek Parkway and run it all the way into Community Park. It's not like you need dedicated land. You got a landing spot, you got a starting spot, and throw a few water traps in there. Hey, people are going to lose frisbees, or dogs can go swim and get them back when you want. Again, I don't think dedicated land for that kind of thing is there. I think if you showed the better renditions on that picture of that BMX park, I think people would be shocked by saying, hey, we're going to go ahead and put all the mounds there. I don't remember which slide it is down here, but I saw one small picture, and it looks worse than what everyone was complaining about being there when the prairie dogs were there. So I think you're creating a big mess there. It just makes absolutely no sense, this site, for a park. So as far as using GOCO money, as far as using other money and matched funds, hey, great. I sent out a note that says, hey, you can get $42,000 tax credit from the state of Colorado if you buy a $109,000 Tesla. Okay? Does that mean we should all go do that? Is that the good use of money that you want to say that you need to have, or if you don't have that money? I think the recession is hitting people in this town. I think at a town entity level, we're lucky because the tax receipts are there. But as far as the individuals in this town, seeing the spending going on this level, we don't always have to build. There are probably other communities that could better benefit the whole of the community to get those GOCO funds for parts that they might need more than we do necessarily in this town. So I think
So we're going to wrap this up and take a 1-minute break, and we can have some more comments during the regular meeting. Sure.
Quick. What's going on, what's being said here.
It's a feedback.
We need to have a meeting where we have ProStack people here and other people here. If you're this dissatisfied and don't, this is your lack of, there are all these questions, then it's not fair to all the other people who put a lot of work into this, all the citizens that have advocated for this, to have it settled here. So I think we need to have something which opens it up and allows other people to comment, and I would recommend that we do that.
Okay, so we need to wrap this up and take a couple of minutes break and then start the meeting.
And thanks for indulging on this. I wanted to hear the discussion, and I thought that given where the process was, people needed to hear feedback.
Okay. We'll start at 7:05.
They're using camera.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody.
Don't care.
Don't go.
UCLA. If you go to Pepperdine, yeah, it's a beautiful campus.
Suzanne went. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to call to order a regular meeting of the Town of Superior Board of Trustees and the Superior McCaslin Interchange Metropolitan District Board of Directors and the Superior Urban Renewal Authority Board of Commissioners and the Superior Metropolitan District Number 1 Board of Directors for October 26, 2009. And Phyllis, if you call the roll.
Sure. Mayor Andrew Buckle.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lisa Skubatz.
Here.
Trustees Joe Sorelli.
Here.
Dana D'Souza.
Here.
Elia Gregores.
Here.
Eric Rosenfeld. Deborah Williams.
Here.
Town Manager Scott Randall.
Here.
Town Attorney Kendra Carter. Here. Town Clerk Paulson.
Item number 3, approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda? Trustee Skumatz.
I think I just have a question on one of them, but I can ask a question even if it stays in the,
Yes, if you don't think that it's substantive,
I don't think
if
it's
you don't think you'll, okay. Then I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda by Trustee Skumatz, second by Trustee Gregores. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Item number 4, reports, questions, and issues. Trustee Williams.
I have nothing to report right now.
Trustee Gregores.
I have a couple of questions. I noticed on the look ahead that one of our meetings on the 23rd of November, I think that's the Monday of the week of Thanksgiving.
Correct.
And kids are off school that whole week, so how many people are planning on being here that
This
Monday?
juncture, we've gotten 3 affirmatives and we've got 1 tentative.
I'm tentative,
Good.
so I'll be here if it makes a difference for a quorum.
I probably won't be here. Okay. The second thing is I saw that there's a notice that McCaslin will be closed from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Halloween.
On Saturday.
Halloween.
Correct.
Why is that?
It's the paving of the roundabout.
and
Okay.
I couldn't tell from where to where of McCaslin. That was my question about
The
that.
detour is actually, you're going to be able to get through if you live in the Ridge as an example, but there's going to be detour signs down Rock Creek Parkway for anybody that wants to go further south, because you won't be able to get through. And we don't want to run it through the neighborhood, through Christian and the like.
So you can drive up to Rock Creek Parkway and
Turn
into
left.
Rock Creek. That's
Yep.
as far as it
Yep.
goes. Okay.
It'll say local traffic only beyond that point. So if you wanted, as an example, the Ridge will be able to get in and out. Same thing as you're coming southbound from 128. It will divert traffic or encourage traffic to divert in Indiana. I mean,
Oh,
if you
way
live in
up there.
Calmonte, obviously you could continue to go and get into Calmonte. But we're encouraging the use of Indiana and Rock Creek Parkway during that. And I don't know that it'll necessarily last 12 hours, but for notification, we've been saying 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Realistically, if they get out of there in 4 hours, it may cease at 11 in the morning.
Okay. That's all I-
Trustee D'Souza.
I attended a Dr. meeting last Wednesday. One of the issues was sustainability, and they're still trying to figure out exactly what language and what areas we want to discuss to put sustainability into Dr. 2035 plan. And the other thing was just trying to figure out with monies and ARA funds and Tiger funds and a million different funds, when there is a bid that comes in under projected costs, exactly where does that money go to? And so one of the problems we're having is that some of the towns feel that they should be able to keep that, and Dr. Cog feels that it should go back into the general fund, and so that was kind of a big area of discussion last week. We ended up splitting the difference.
I attended a Urban Drainage Board of Directors meeting where we approved the budget for the upcoming year, so that we're in the black, so that's good. We have Coal Creek drainage design in there that will be splitting 50-50, I believe, with Urban Drainage. I don't remember the cost. I think it's on the order of $100,000 or thereabouts. I attended a work session of the Board of Directors of the Town of Superior where we discussed dog park, and there was some interesting discussion about it. I would like to continue that perhaps after we're done with this. So, Trustee Skumetz.
I attended a meeting of the, or chaired a meeting of the Energy and Sustainability Committee of the Colorado Municipal League. It was well attended, and it looks like the league is going to be examining issues like the Climate Smart Loan Program and broadening that, but also other sustainability issues. So I'll keep you posted. And we have presentations from other communities on how they manage to leverage dollars from state, et cetera, et cetera. I think I also heard, and then I went to a meeting of the a CML dinner, or one of those chapter meetings, and I had to go to the Fort Collins one because the Consortium of Cities met on the sort of our district night. So in any case, but what I think I heard from DOLA was that DOLA, which normally has significant funds for folks, is pretty much broke for grants this coming year. And so anything that we would ordinarily have approached DOLA for is going to be kind of DOA. I also went on a very nice small tour of the finish of the remodel of the historic mine camp museum. And they finished the basement now and are installing, exhibits and stuff like that, and they continue to make progress, and it's turning out nicely. So I encourage people to visit. I think that's it.
I'd just like to say that our other colleague tonight had a work conflict, and so he couldn't make it here, so just wanted to... He was sorry that he couldn't attend the meeting. Trustee Cirilli.
I have nothing to report.
I forgot a coffee buzz, but we had a well-attended coffee buzz, and Trustee D'Souza was also there, and the issues came up about library, about park, and several other issues. And that I would like to, as I mentioned, I think, in a previous meeting, like to have a work session about library soon.
Okay. Mr. Randall.
What a segue. 4 items. We did receive late Thursday night the City of Louisville proposed budget, which is scheduled to be ratified next Monday night. They gave us a whopping 10 days in which to review it. Cursory review of their library budget was that while their general fund was being cut by about 4% in overall spending, their library operations were going to go up about 1.3%. Most significantly, no change in service. I know that there had been some discussions internally in Louisville about possibly cutting back library hours. Their budget proposes nothing. Not gotten in anything more in depth, but if I find anything, I'll share it with you through the weekly communication. Going to suggest, we've had a number of things building up for transportation and safety. If it's possible for the next meeting, prior to the next meeting, if the 3 members are available on November 9th. And I'll contact you offline, but we've had 3 or 4 things that have been referred to the committee, so I thought it was appropriate to meet. Website task force meets for the first time Wednesday morning. We'll report back on that, but excited that they're finally getting together. It's been difficult, even though it's only 4 members, getting their calendars to jive. And some very good news in terms of all the downbeat economic news. We do have a new retailer coming into the community. We personally met with them last week, talked about signage, permitting, and all of the rest, and then happened to encounter as well at a chamber function. But Baskin-Robbins will be opening up in Rock Creek Village on December 1st.
Where at? Where do they?
The space formerly occupied by Unleashed.
Is that next to Subway?
Yes.
There's your segue to go.
Local resident, and very excited, have a good business plan, a good marketing plan, and really excited. And not to blow anybody's horn, but it is somebody that the mayor and I have met with the last 2 years at the ICSC. And I mean, they were sold, corporate was sold on this as a viable location. It was finding a franchisee, and we're going to do all that we need and can do in order to get them up and operational by December 1st. That's all I have.
Ms. Carberry?
I don't have anything.
Ms. Hardin? So getting back to this conversation about the dog park, let's see. So at the work session, in case anybody didn't tune in for that one, we had a discussion about the dog park that was generally by the wastewater treatment plant site off of Honey Creek Lane. ProStack committee had been working on this for quite a long period of time. There were 3 elements that were associated with that, which included I thought it was a BMX track, but it's now been changed to a mountain bike skills area or something like that, if I remember the terminology correctly, as well as a disc golf course and a dog park. I think I heard from the board, and board, please correct me if I'm wrong, that there was interest in exploring the BMX track, although we had some questions about the how it might look or erosion and things like that. And I think I heard general interest in the disc golf course. So I'm seeing a general, we're not voting, but I'm seeing a general head nod to that effect. So I just want to be clear because it's important for our committees to know this so they can continue to work on it. Okay, I think I see a general head nod to that effect. That the dog park was controversial because of the costs and the location next to the creek, and I need to have some more conversation about that if we could at this time. And then we'll entertain more public comment about that issue. So, I think I heard Trustee Williams, unless you had anything else, you're not interested in the dog park at all.
Well, I'm just going to throw out that, if we have $98,000 in Conservation Trust Fund dollars, I think we should keep the price right around there. Those are my thoughts.
The park
Unless you
or
want to wait 3 years and accumulate the money and have it in the bank.
the dog park or the, I just want to be, I want
I
to be,
mean, in
I don't want to be
general.
crystal clear about what we're talking about. The dog park or the whole park in general?
The whole park in general, and I'm not for a dog park.
Okay. Trustee Gregoris,
Yes,
I think I heard also that you were interested in all 3 elements except had some concern about the
Reservations.
dog park and wanted to understand the environmental impacts.
Right. And the scale of it and the cost.
Okay. And Trustee D'Souza?
So I think that these are all facilities that people have asked about over the years, and I think ProStack is right in that these are amenities that people would like to see. And I appreciate the way that they've worked out that this is going to be from not necessarily just Superior residents, but funds from GOCO and other sources. My concern is that a dog park of that size and with the style and cost that it has is unnecessary. I'm a big fan of dog parks. I like taking our dogs to dog parks. The ones that I see that seem to do just great are dirt dog parks, maybe gravel, crushed fine, something like that would be wonderful. I just think that the location along the creek, if you look at the open space plan for all of the county, you can see that the Rock Creek is an area that is that in general we try and preserve. If you go all the way down through Rock Creek Farms, if you continue on, it's a regional area, and I think that it would be a disservice to not only our community, but to the county and the area as well, if we were to put something like that along there. I think that the Frisbee Golf is in line with some of the earlier presentations we saw. Whether there are other areas for it, I don't know, but I don't know how much of a disruption it would be there, but I think that might be appropriate there. And my son was one of the ones who brought up for the presentation to have a BMX park, and I would love to see some sort of, what was it? Skills?
Mountain bike skills
Mountain biking skills
area.
Training, because we pay a lot of money to send them somewhere else to do that, so I would love to have that in town. But one of the concerns is along there and the erosion. One of the reasons that we're moving it away from the social area that it's been developed, that I have heard, is because it's right along the creek. And so I'm, I guess, a little confused when I really look at it is, why are we moving it just further down along the creek? So I do have some concerns about that, but I think that it would be an amenity that people would use and could be needed in town.
So just, once again, I don't
Sorry,
mean
that
to
was
be...
a long wrap-up.
No, thank you. So I don't want to belabor the point. So I think that I'm no on the dog park.
I don't think it's a good idea,
Okay. So...
from what I've seen so far.
My opinion is, and this is a, my personal opinion, I think these are 3 great amenities. I have always been supportive of it. I think I will continue to be in support of that. I would like to spend enough money so that it looks good. I don't think that we should try to do these things on the cheap. I don't think our residents want to see that. And I think that if we need to spend enough money to put in irrigation to make sure that the area looks good, I think we should do that. But that's my perspective. Trustee Skrillex.
I wouldn't have said that I wouldn't have interpreted Trustee D'Souza's vote as a no for a dog park. It was no for that option of a dog park. And I think it's not an up-down vote at this point. It ought to be that we're still considering options.
Well, I just want to make, once again, I want to make sure, because the area that we're talking about is Community Park East. That's the dog park I'm talking about, and I think understood that not interested in that location.
Or a dog park with irrigation or that scale, or $250,000, $57,000.
So, got all that, but I just want to make sure that we can give direction to our committee about.
I don't think it's a
in
good
this
idea
area.
in Community Park
Got it.
East.
Trustees comments.
I honestly don't, and not, I know some people have asked for an ecological study of whether or not a dog park should be there. I don't think a dog park should be there, whether or not the ecological study says it's okay or not, or environmental study or whatever. To me, we ought to be keeping that area clear and for riparian and all the rest of that stuff. And I think why would we put a dog park right next to a creek? I don't understand that at all. Whether or not it's okay environmentally, yeah. And so I think we should. I have no. Maybe there are other locations. I'm happy to hear about other locations. But if we want to have these things, and if this is the best or whatever place, I don't have a significant problem with the. I like the amenities of a BMX or whatever you want to call it. I like the amenity of a disc golf thing. I like the amenity of a dog park. I don't see why we can't. I look at this as providing guidance to the committee and the planners that something smaller scale is an option that should be on the table, not a $250,000 dog park, which is more than 2/3 of the cost of this whole development. That just seems completely out of scale to me. I don't think of a dog park that is a chain link or a better fence with crusher fines to be doing it on the cheap. I see it as doing it on the appropriate, and on the low maintenance, and on the sustainable, and on the all anybody needs for a dog park. I don't see that as the cheap. I see it as the appropriate, or more appropriate. And so I guess I don't consider that a no vote. I consider that we're still in the planning phase. These are the kind of options we would like to provide you feedback about. Before you go down a path and say, it's this or nothing. That's not what we want. It's not this or nothing. It's here's some feedback.
So once again, I want to be crystal clear. I believe that that's a no vote for the dog park in this location.
It's
Is
not
that true?
in that particular location. If they pulled it back from the creek, it could be in that same park area. It just needs to be not on a creek. As with the BMX, I wouldn't be in favor of that on the creek either.
Okay, so, all right. Trustee Sorelli.
I believe hearing what Lisa just said pretty much captures where my mind is at. I like I'm okay with the bike setup and the frisbee golf, the disc golf.
Whatever.
Yeah, a greatly scaled back dog park without manicured lawn and no irrigation. So a very natural thing, and if it can work there in that spot, I'd support it. I don't know that there's an environmental issue with having it there, but that's what I'd like. Otherwise, I'm okay with it there.
Okay.
Can I add something?
Trustee Williams?
Actually, I'd like to make it even more crystal clear so that someone can take it back to the committees and go with what we've got. I feel that the amount of the mountain bike trail park, the golf, the disc golf, and some park amenities, without going on the Jeep, can easily accommodate $98,000 in a nice design on this facility, far enough away from the creek where there's a really good buffer where the creek is not involved in all that. That's what I would like to see. That's what I think, to me, would be a nice park. So that's my thoughts on that. And I think you're 2/3 there, in my opinion. So those are my thoughts.
Trustees comments?
And I'm not against getting grants to help fund this. I'm quite for getting grants to help fund this, but rather than making it scale up to an expensive dog park, I'd say, gee, isn't there some other amenity that's desirable? Basketball courts, I don't care, just, I would go that way rather than making a Cadillac dog park.
Okay. So I'm just going to let you know what I'm thinking in terms of process. I'm anticipating circling back around to the board here in a moment, but I would like, if we could, have, and this is somewhat unusual for meeting styles, but I would like, if there's public comment about this particular issue, and I promise that we will come back to additional public comment about non-related issues, but if there's public comment about this, I think it would be a great time to explore that right now. Anybody? You can do, it's new meeting, new time, no restrictions.
New meeting, new time. Jeff Chu, 1959 Cedar Ridge Circle. So, amongst all the other comments, I guess my concern is that this site is being targeted as a community park east, and I guess I just ask all of you to really consider, is this the site that you need to put these amenities on? There is plenty of room other sites. If the issue was, hey, this board is convinced that we're going to do a dog park in the next 2 years based on the budget, then I would say put it back where we talked originally in the middle of community park. That's a better suited, better access. You don't have to worry about putting in additional parking or additional roads. Put it back there if you're convinced that you need to have a dog park in community park. Put it back there. There's the irrigation ditch that has a fence there. Find a spot in community park. This area, we just finished restoring this area, removing prairie dog, spending money to return it back to the grassland, the nice, beautiful area that and maybe it's a bad politically incorrect thing these days, but that the prairie dogs used to walk through, the coyotes used to walk through before the prairie dogs came in, and it just seems a shame to be taking this property and trying to find something to do with it. It's growing back to what it was when we moved here, when most of us moved into town, and were able to see a very, very gorgeous piece of property there when we were there. So as far as the budget goes, I think if you don't come to a conclusion, and again, the budget, to remind what I recall, is you put a line item in there and you say Community Park East, everyone thinks it's a done deal. Well, it's not a done deal until you vote on a specific proposal and specific contracts. To avoid confusion, you might change it to say future park amenities and put it that way, as opposed to calling out a specific park and a specific, specific amenities there. It's something that we've gone back and forth on the budget. And I had some other comments on the budget, but I will leave those alone for a different comment. Park, location there. Yeah, I think I'll probably remember something later, but.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the comment.
Didn't even use up all his time.
Okay, Jim Payne, 2475 Clayton Circle, and the chair of ProStac, which is the town's Parks, Rec, Open Space and Trails Advisory Committee. To explain the acronym. Just a couple of points. It's a new meeting. I just wanted to reiterate a couple of things. We recently received some publicity in the town as being ranked number 13 in the nation for towns of our size as best place to live. Clearly a reason for that were the amenities, the open space, the parks that we have in this town. The board has given us direction to use by almost any standard, I think, certainly a relatively modest amount of money that we get from the Conservation Trust Fund for our new amenities, and we're using this with additional possibility of additional grants without using any superior tax money. We've seen a strong demand and a lot of public comment in this room before you to find amenities for teens and youth, and that's one of the objectives of this park. I would emphasize that one of the advantages and one of the reasons for this concept is that it takes this beautiful piece of land and essentially secures it as open space with something like 4 to 5 acres of footprint on a 34-acre piece of land, and those leaving it largely in its natural state. So there is a win-win here, I'd argue, for the use of that land. And I'm concerned in process that we lose sight of the of the big picture of that active park as we start picking apart the individual pieces. We can do that, but you need to come back and say, where does that leave the whole park concept, and where does that leave our possibilities of getting GOCO funding to do what we'd like to do for the town? As we take those pieces apart, we lose some of the attractiveness for the GOCO grant opportunity. And then as far as the cost of the dog park, no one has gone to greater lengths than ProStack to make it clear that these are proposals. There has been nothing designed. No amenities have even begun to be designed. So what happens, in my experience, is some months down the road when we say, okay, now it's time to look at a dog park, and we open it up for comment, we are going to get a lot of comment. People are very passionate about dogs. Not everyone agrees on the design of dog parks, and that's part of the process. I don't think that the people in this town that are going to come forward are going to say, yeah, we just want the cheapest with a chain link fence. If they do, fine. We're not out to build, fancy things where we don't need them. But I ask you to think, where in this town has the public come forward and said, we just want the cheapest thing you can do, put a chain link fence up? That will then take away from the character of the park. And again, all of these additional upgrades that we're talking about would be paid for with lottery funds, that if they don't go to us, they go to somebody else. So we put a number in there knowing that that's expecting that's what the people in this town will want. If they don't want it, if they're happy with a chain link fence around a dirt or crusher fine lot, we'll be the first ones to say, that's great, let's spend $150 instead of $250. But I don't think that's going to be the case.
Can I ask a
Thank
question?
you. Trustee Gregorius.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do you think the potential success of securing a fund from GOCO would be jeopardized if we limited the dog park or eliminated it altogether?
I'm not the expert, and maybe someone else can speak to that, but certainly the way we were briefed leading in this process was that this is what GOCO wants, and that they want that kind of a full project. If we were to, I'm pretty sure that if we were to say, well, we'd like to put a BMX over here in Community Park, we'd like to put a BMX in Purple Park or wherever, all these spots that some people think we have to put these things, and spread it around and lose the concept. My understanding is that greatly diminishes our chance for the GOCO grant.
No, I'm saying having the BMX and the disc golf in the same area, but a smaller version of the dog park, or eliminating altogether. Would that diminish our capabilities or up?
You'd get less money. It might be a $50,000 grant instead of a $100,000 grant or something like that. Obviously, you'd get less money. You're not going to get the $150,000. And there's even the possibility of other grant money. I guess I'm a little concerned that if the town and staff and ProStack can find additional grant money to enhance facilities for this town, and included in that would be additional contributions to improving the stabilization and all kinds of other nice benefits for that piece of land, that we're not going to do that. I think that's something that I'm really shocked that we would turn down lottery dollars. I understand if it's other kinds of grants or tax dollars, no question there. But this is money that goes to the towns that have a good plan. If GOCO looks at our plan and says, yes, that's what we like, then I think we should be very careful about turning it away.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee D'Souza.
I just want to have a follow-up, but isn't there $100,000 set aside for Parks and Rec?
$100,000 a year.
Right.
In conservation trust, also lottery money, but that comes to the town for the benefit of those watching on a per capita basis, and it goes to every town and municipality in the state on that per capita basis.
But I just want to clarify, though, if we would have $100,000, correct?
Right.
Well, if we didn't have the dog park, the bike park was $61K, the Frisbee was $13K, and some design and signage, wouldn't we have approximately the right amount?
Because when Trustee Williams made that point, why don't we take that money and accumulate it? That's exactly what we were doing.
Right.
The dog park was out there in 2013, and I will be the first one to admit that it was clearly understood that that was just a projection, and we'd have to relook at that whole thing when we got closer to 2013. We planned a year or 2 years from now to begin a comprehensive look at the dog policy and with ProStack and the dog needs in this town toward coming up with a proposal for that dog park. When the additional GOCO grants came into play, and there are even possibilities of additional GOCO grants, as Manager Randall said, then that's when, to do that, we'd have to pull it all in, which would have advantages if we want to do it because it enables us to pull it all in. But it's using our Conservation Trust Fund money with additional GOCO grants to upgrade these amenities in that park. But essentially, the basic cost of those amenities, with the exception of that additional dog park phase, and the footprint, the amount of acreage out of the 34 acres, the 3 to 4 acres it would take, has not changed since day one. So I'm not sure the 100, I mean, does that answer your question? The 100,000 is there. It takes 5, 6, 7 years to accumulate it.
Can I just say something real quick? If you take the dog park out and you keep this nice design, you just take the dog park out, you come up to pretty close to 100,000. And you still have a real nice park with nice park amenities, and maybe you get, I don't know, 10% from a GOCO grant. Great. Now we have a little extra we can keep in the bank. I mean, we're almost there. I mean, we're so close.
I'm certainly not suggesting that we go through that we try to justify a dog park simply to get GOCO grants. So let me make that clear.
No, I wasn't.
There's been a
saying that.
strong demand in this town for it. I got involved in this committee because of that issue, and I know that there are a lot of people. Now, Chili Fest, we had a booth. This is anecdotal because we don't have a recent survey. I understand that. This has all come up so quickly. But there is a lot of interest out there and a lot of demand for a dog facility in this town. And I hate for you to lose sight of that. It's not my top priority. I'm not crazy about it. I don't own any dogs, but I know that there are a lot of people in this town who want one. And if we're serious about the dog enforcement, rules that are on the books, you have to give people some place to go.
And I'm thinking.
I mean, right now, a large part of the usage of that 30-acre plot right now is for dogs running free, and in the pools and on the walks, and we can leave it like that and just have an agreement that that's essentially going to be open space and a free run for dogs.
Well, what I'm thinking is that
That's an option.
the main drawback of this park is the dog park and the proximity to the creek corridor. And if those two were eliminated, then this park could probably happen pretty quickly.
Then it's not really
quicker than.
Then it's not really a. I mean,
What this is
it's
gonna-
a.
it's- this
then we
is the
plop two-
roadblock.
Then we plot. What I'm concerned about is that there's a comprehensive plan for this development, and I know you've seen it. It was presented to you, but I'm just afraid that we're going to lose sight of that, and you start picking away pieces like that, and at some point you don't really have an active park anymore. But that's an option. I'm certainly not with it. Look, if the GOCO grant doesn't come through, that's exactly where we'll be.
And I get your point, but maybe to make it actually happen for the people is to drop some of the amenities and parts of the park that are such a huge roadblock.
Okay.
That's
If it's okay, then I was going to go to Trustee Scomatz on this. Is that okay, Trustee
Because,
Scomatz?
I honestly think we're two-thirds there. I think we're right on. It looks great, and just
I'll just
some
say, if we want a
changes.
dog park, and we recognize that there's a need for one, here's an opportunity to get GOCO grants to defray a large part of the cost of doing that. That's really what it comes down to.
And that
We
could
don't
be
want a
something that
dog
we
park,
look
then
at
we don't
later.
do it. You can always
Yeah.
do that.
Don't have to shut the door on it.
Trustee Scomatz.
I made most of my comments in the previous meeting, and I think we're not trying to come to a decision about this tonight. We're just trying to provide advice back and discussion and all that sort of thing. But I will say that you mentioned something about, there's this grant and that grant, and why wouldn't we take that free money? And I would say that that's partly because that money also comes with upkeep and dollars that we have to pay into the future. So, thank you.
Okay, but that's very minimal. By any standard, we're talking minimal amounts of maintenance. This is not a swimming pool with staff and heavy. This is about as low maintenance.
I'm talking about a multiple back and forth dog area with grass and irrigation, all the rest of that jazz. So that's kind of, anyway. I was trying to avoid us going back and forth.
the estimate's only $25,000 a year, but it's a very, very low by any park amenity standard. This is a low maintenance to facility situation.
Okay. Additional public comment about this particular issue.
Hi, my name is Pamela Keel, and I live at 1817 Reliance Circle. You'll have to forgive me, I'm nervous. It's kind of ironic because in public life, or in my professional life, I'm a public servant, so here I am actually voicing my own opinion, which is a little bit different for me. But as we've had the discussion tonight about the budget, which was not really my issue when we started all this with the park, I have my superintendent's words ringing in my ears about being fiduciary guardians. And regardless of where the money comes from, we do have a responsibility to make the best use of any funds that we might have access to. So that rings in my ears. Free money, okay, well, Town Superior, one of you mentioned in the work session that we're in a good position where we are not suffering, overall financially as some towns are, so that's good. But let's not forget to be good fiduciary guardians. Thank you, Dr. Selleck. Next part. I go back to my original premise when all of this began, and that was looking at the land that this is proposed to use. I never thought at my age that I would be a self-admitted tree hugger, but I guess that's what this has come down to. That land, as Jeff pointed out, is beautiful. It is natural. It is, and I'm not even looking at the money we've spent to clean it up or any of that. It's just beautiful land. And I totally enjoy it. I don't have my own children, but I take a lot of kids down there, and it's just a learning lab, honestly. And the idea of, when I saw the initial plan, all that parking, which now I understand is not accurate, my thoughts are people coming in and out. So let that be where it may. I don't know where that's going to fall out, but I do know that that's a beautiful piece of land, and I would like to hear more people that have respect for that land, especially in terms of putting a dog park in there where we know, I'm a dog lover, always have been, was raised with dogs, and I take my dogs to Louisville, I take my dogs to East Boulder Park, or my dog, I only have one now, but we know what happens. Those of you that have dogs knows what happens to land that dogs are on. And it's supposed to happen. That's why we put a little area in there to say, this is your spot, and yes, you get to kind of mess it up and have no grass and be barren, and that's okay. So the thought of having that property being used for that breaks my heart. The thought of people driving in and out, I was at Breckenridge one time, one of your meetings, and I was on the speakerphone. My neighbor held the speakerphone up so I could hear everything. But people were standing up from Boulder about the Frisbee golf course, saying, oh, yeah, that'd be great. And there were some people from Louisville, yeah, let's put in a Frisbee golf course. So in my mind, I have a vision of traffic flowing Saturday mornings, who knows what else, tournaments. I don't know if I have a time limit or not. You'll have to tell me. So,
The little button.
huh?
There's a little button there.
Oh, green means go. Okay. So I have I have concerns about even the Frisbee golf being there and the traffic flow, what that's going to look like. And I will say I did research the demographics of Frisbee golf players, because I'm very curious about how a survey that was done 3 years ago, if my understanding is correct, has evolved to the point of 3 amenities: a dog park, Frisbee golf, and BMX skill mountain trail riding center. Yellow, that means hurry up. My understanding is we want a place for the teens. Frisbee golf, the demographics, from what I have researched, look to be ages, I hate to say this, 40 and up. Not seen a lot of teenagers out there looking for Frisbee golf. Go online, and maybe that's what I researched. I should have brought my stats from the Frisbee Golf Association, but anyway. So that's one part. The BMX part, my understanding with that is more for preteens. I have not researched this part. 9-year-olds to maybe 13, 14, then once they get past that, they're not really into it. I don't know. Anyway, I'm sure I have a lot more to say, but I'm glad to hear what Trustee Skumad said about this is a discussion, this is not a yes or no, and I'm done. Thank you.
Additional public comment about this particular issue.
Good evening, George Cutler, 109 South 4th. I'm standing here, we got a park that's not finished, and we're talking about starting another one to finish. We're asking for monies off of our lottery tickets and so forth to support this park. What about our Town 9 up here, that we took graders or loader scrapers, leveled the park off, both ends of it, we got grass, so that's fine. We have little football up there, practice on football, soccer. But where's our ballpark you took away from us over here on the street on Colquitt to put the house on? We had a ballpark there, people, and we were promised we were going to have one up in this partial up there. We're not spending any money up there at all like we're supposed to. This was started in 2000 when we annexed this property. Now we're going to build one down there, but Rock Creek has sufficient baseball parks. We have, these children don't have nothing. They don't have a basketball court, tennis court. Could be all put on the east side like we talked about 11 years ago, Mayor. You know that as well as I do. Keep this in mind before you start jumping off the cliff and supporting something else before we don't even have one finished.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No.
I'm Bob McCool, 312 West Coal Creek Drive. I'm going to speak to this at a different angle, and it has to do with the process that I've observed with this. And I sat and watched the work session, and as a former chair of the Open Space Advisory Committee, I'm pretty sensitive to what the process by which committees work. And today, for this last hour, I saw a frustrated town manager, frustrated board, argumentative. Basically, the whole hour just seemed confrontational and argumentative. I'm not coming up here to give you an answer. I don't know what it is. But it doesn't feel much different than other big issues that I've faced with or faced on committees in the past. And we've spent an hour and 50 minutes kind of arguing. First hour, and then it's 50 minutes. And what seems to me probably shouldn't have even gotten to the point where it is today. In business, as a business owner, I've got to watch staff's excitement and guide them gently into the right place, because I'm not a big business, so I can't afford $100,000 projects even, so we do $20,000 projects. And that takes consistent guidance to make sure that happens. And I don't get the sense that happens with the committees. I've been plenty argumentative up here myself, and so I'm taking a step back and trying to think about how to fix this so that if advice is, or if an advisory committee is asked to look into a project, how do you guide it to the right place? Because you're the elected officials. You're the ones who represent me. You're the ones who were elected by this town. So I have an expectation that you will guide things to where you think they should be. That's what you're up here, and that requires lots of things, like coffee buzzes and chats after meetings and things like that. And so I don't have a solution, but I wanted to kind of publicize this observation because I think it happens I see it in staff, I see it in the board, I see it in our chairman of Parks Rec Open Space Trails Advisory Committee, and I have experienced and felt it myself. And would ask you to just, as we, and I don't know if this project can be repaired. It really just seems to be getting confrontational. But as we engage at advisory committees, let's try to think about a process that gets them to where you think that they should be, that gets public comment in at the appropriate time as best we can. And I know that's hard, but as best we can. And come to a conclusion and put these things to rest, because they just seem to drag on, and then they get more argumentative, and then people hear about it at different times, and the public starts to get argumentative, and I'd just like to see that improve. So,
Thank you. Trustee Gregorius?
Yeah, I just had a comment. I don't know if it feels argumentative to everyone, either watching on TV or here, but from sitting up here, for me, it hasn't felt that way. I think it's been an energized discussion, but not necessarily argumentative. I feel like we have some differences as board members. They're not great differences. There are some, but we're open to hearing what you have to say, and ultimately we'll have to make the final decision. But it feels like a healthy discussion. I'm glad Trustee Skumas brought it up. I think we needed to air some things out and see where everybody stands. So in some ways, I feel like this is healthy. I think what we should have done is done it sooner, though.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. So
I think we've been clearer than we've been, which is
Yeah,
maybe
well,
not
absolutely.
so happy-friendly, but it's, it's what we need.
Okay. Additional public comment about this particular issue. So this is what I'm going to recommend. I think this is what I've heard, and I know that people will be willing to tell me if I'm incorrect. And it is important to make a decision in a way tonight, because we need to give direction to do something to our committee and to our staff. That direction, depending on what it is, involves spending money, because we're spending staff time and perhaps some outside consultation time. I don't know if that would be required as well. So we need to be clear that we're making a decision tonight not to move forward with the park, but how to proceed. So I think what I heard is that there's some interest in continuing to explore the options, including the dog park, although that one's controversial, but to learn maybe moving it around, less expensive. And so I think that the direction is to have staff continue with this process, understanding what the concerns are, and that would include all three options, perhaps at different scales, but we want to proceed. Is that, generally, is that head nod to the affirmative?
yes.
I see an O.
Only if the costs match close to the Conservation Trust Fund dollars. That's how I feel.
Annual dollars.
Annual dollars. If we're going to do it in 1 year, there's 98,000.
But if we do it over the course of several years?
Only if it's completely coming from that money, and that money is already there.
Okay, so that's fair. Trustees Kamatz?
Yeah, and I'm willing to spend more if we get grant matching money. I don't, if it's amenities we think are rightly sized, rightly designed, et cetera, and we can not pay the full amount, hey, that sounds good to me.
Okay.
But I think we should be sensitive to some of the comments we heard also about location, but I don't want to throw out the apple cart, but, if something comes up in the public comment or others, that it should be explored somewhere else, we should do that.
Okay. So I think I hear direction about how to proceed. The plan all along was to discuss this in I think the first quarter of 2010, if I remember this correctly. So this will be coming around the first part of next year for some more discussion. We're at the 10% design phase. I think I sort of heard that comment made, to move it to the 75% design phase. And then perhaps additional discussion at that time, but would like some more input with some more of these details. And we'll explore this more in first part of 2010. Okay? Does that sound fair? And then we'll make a decision about how to proceed at that time, which may include go forward, we need some more analysis, we'd like to have the planning commission look at this, who knows what that would be, but we would discuss that some more in 2010. Okay? Is that
Thanks.
general consensus?
And that
Thanks for the indulgence.
we're not locked in on where the land is.
We are not locked into anything until we make a decision and spend money. So, Trustee Gutierrez and then
Do we
Trustee
apply,
D'Souza.
though, for funding?
No.
Not yet.
Until we know what we're going to do, we won't be applying for anything, because the worst thing we could do is apply for a grant and say, no, actually, we really don't want that, because the next time it's coming around, they're kind of flaky there in the town of Superior. We don't want to give them any money, so I would not recommend doing that.
And I recommend designing a park that we can afford and trying to get grant money to reduce the costs so that we have more in the bank.
Okay. Trustee D'Souza.
I just, I'd like to recognize the amount of time that ProStack has spent on this, because I know that the people have obviously volunteered their time for this. I agree that there has been that disconnect as far as where exactly the decision is made, and so I'm really happy that Trustee Skumatz brought this up, because I think it is important that, just from what I've been hearing in the community, that there's been a problem with the perception, and so I think it's appropriate that we bring it up. I think it's appropriate that ProStack gets a clearer direction, which hopefully they did tonight. But I would like to say that, I'm trying to think of how to put this, that ProStack spends so much time on this, and I want to really be careful that when we say go forward, like, how much time are we asking them to spend on this? How much of this really should be staff time? How much is ProStack giving ideas, and then some of the work is really staff work? Or we get somebody else in that presents to the board, and maybe not put so much of it on ProStack, and because then they have a vested interest in it for the work that they've done so far. So I agree that there's aspects of this that I would like to see continued, but I recognize that ProStack puts a lot of time in this, and so how much time, I guess, is up to them as far as what they want to involve.
Okay. I completely agree, and that's why I think that's important that we make a decision, because I suspect there will be staff time and the dollars associated with that, and we don't want to do something that we're not interested in going there. So I believe that I've heard direction.
Correction.
Mr. Randall, I just want to make sure you're relatively clear on the process here.
My notes. Scaled down dog park, relocated and substantially cheaper. Disc golf, BMX. There seems to be broader levels of support for. And with that guidance, we'll work on coming up with, as I described it before, the design development phase. And I keep using this as an analogy, but the roundabout. You saw it on 3 different occasions. You saw it when it was just an idea without anything on paper. You saw it at 30%. You saw it at 70%. It didn't become a done deal until you approved a contract to build it. The board, whether it's this board or a successor board, has the right to pull the plug. It's the power of the purse, and until you commit the money to do it, it's not a done deal. So that's been a phrase that's been bantered about outside this room and a lot tonight. But I don't know where it comes from, but let's not perpetuate it, because nothing is a done deal until the board makes the ultimate decision to spend the money.
Okay.
And when staff gets frustrated, thank you, Mr. McCool, or your advisory groups get frustrated, which we tried to address earlier this year with enhanced communications like development of annual work programs, at the end of the day, the board still has to say yes. And until the board says yes, it's still an undetermined question.
Okay. So thank you very much. I think that we've talked about that enough for the evening. So let's now move to public comment and consent agenda or non-agenda items which wouldn't involve this particular issue. Budget will be a separate item, so we'll hold a public hearing about that.
There.
I'm trying.
Bob McCool, 312 West Coal Creek. Thank you for the earlier time. That took up a lot of my time, so I'm sure I was going to be able to get it all out. Last meeting, there was a mention of the exit off Highway 36 to turn south on the chasm you're coming. So I've been paying attention. I drive it frequently. And Daryl, no clue that that yield sign was there.
Yeah.
No idea that it had been put there. I hadn't either, to be honest. That was the first I've heard about it. So I am a person who looks at that sign on the right, that's still there, by the way, that says that this is a continuous lane. And the sign on the left that says there's a yield. So we have conflicting signs, I think. If you look at Cherry Street in Louisville, which is a similar southbound turn onto McCaslin, I think they've got it. Which is basically that the 2 lanes that are coming south, it's clear that it becomes 3 for you. I mean, if that's what you want. I don't think I want that, but that's sounding like what you're trying to accomplish. And that there's clearly a white line, stop or yield, don't go past here because you're entering into traffic. And that's a Cherry. Coming out of Starbucks, I'm seeing that a lot now. So as you come out of that shopping center out of Louisville and turn south on McCaslin off of Cherry, then you'll see that. Clearly, you don't go into McCaslin, into that new 3rd lane. It's only 2 lanes. They stop it at Cherry. You're forced right. On the other side of the intersection, it's the 2 lanes going south that have an opening into that lane. Seems to work. It seems to be very clear. What's there right now is not clear. So anyway, wanted to provide some feedback since I've been driving that lately.
Thanks.
The open space Madsen property. I didn't see it on the look ahead. It isn't on the agenda tonight. We talked about it at the Open Space Advisory Committee. Is it tabled? Is it done? Is it
So where we left
later?
it, so to be clear, so the Madsen property is a property in original town along Coal Creek. How the board left it was that we would approve the purchase contingent upon a variety of further analysis, and actually the
The
town
cost of
manager
the
probably
cleanup
has some
as
more.
well as the completion of the environmental assessment. The environmental assessment I expect to have in my hands by next Monday.
Okay, so it's still
But it's
been
still in the
approved.
works.
And you've received the minutes from the Open Space Advisory Committee, so you have our.
Correct.
So since you brought that up, I read the minutes.
It was less than a ringing endorsement.
It was unclear.
It was vague.
Because it said we didn't move it to the highest level.
Yeah, so basically our
But I'm
feeling
not sure if
was-
that meant
Well-
don't do it, or...
Well, we're not saying, because for one, I don't know that we have, so we are saying that it doesn't meet the criteria of a high-value parcel. I mean, we're not saying it's considerably less important than any of the 8 we've identified. In fact, if you look at the report, there are probably several that rank higher than that. We didn't feel it was appropriate to really say anything else. That's what we've been asked to do. We looked at the parcel, we walked through the parcel, talked about it, we looked at it. We don't think it's...
So no recommendation one way or the other.
Our only, I guess, our only comment is to provide the advice that we thought we were asked to do, which is that it doesn't meet the criteria to become a high-value parcel, which is what you've
Not a
asked us to
high-value,
look at
okay.
first in the past. So that's where we kind of left it, figuring that you may have other reasons to or not to purchase it. So.
Okay.
I'm going to bring up pedestrian crosswalks. I'm just going to bring them up every meeting until I either hear that something's going on. I haven't really gotten confirmation, but on Sycamore, around the Sur District, I mean, when I see these nice green signs that are around town that let people know there's a crosswalk there, as well as on Highway 76, those are areas, in my opinion, that are lacking. Love to get some feedback. At some point that's going to be looked at, and hopefully one of these times we'll say, yeah, that's being looked at.
As I mentioned earlier, the Transportation Safety Committee meeting is being scheduled for 2 weeks from tonight. That's one of about 6 items that the committee will have on its agenda.
Thank you.
You're going to have to feed us then.
It'll start at about 3:30.
Yeah. Lunch and dinner.
And then my last item is, I haven't seen any money in the budget for, I'm sorry, that's a budget. I'll bring that up.
Okay.
Sorry.
And you reminded me of one thing.
Trustee Skumatz?
Something for the Transportation Committee to consider. I almost saw bicyclists hit the other day on the turnabout. We do have, we have the bright yellow signs, but we don't have any flashing lights. I think those flashing lights get people's attention. I think just the crosswalk alone doesn't do it. So
In the roundabout?
just short of the roundabout, yeah.
Okay.
Flashing lights aren't for bicyclists.
Bicyclists, walkers, whatever.
Okay. Additional public comment on consent agenda or non-agenda items?
I know George likes to go last, so. Jeff Chu, 1959 Cedar Ridge Circle. I think Mr. McCool had a couple of quick comments that I'll just tack on to. One is, why not a stop sign coming off of 36? At least it establishes who has right of way, who doesn't. Plain and simple. It won't stop things up for a long time, but it does say, hey, you don't have the right of way. So, the Madison property, I guess, just to clarify, what I think I heard was, as not a high value property, there seems to be no logical reason why we should be paying top dollar, $100,000 an acre or whatever it is, close to be buying a piece of property for open space.
Much less than, just as an FYI, much less than that on a per acre basis, but.
Okay. I thought it was 100,000. I thought it was a 1 acre parcel. Maybe it's a 2.5 acre parcel that he's going to get for 100,000. So, okay. The one I really want to touch on is, I think, well, I'll avoid more comment regarding the park and everything else like that. I think one of the things that we spent a lot of time, a lot of staff time on focusing on that. I have not seen that kind of activity, and I was hoping that, we would make more progress as far as this downturn in the economy goes to start articulating the development for the town center and everything else we want to go along there. And I really have not seen any real advancement in there. I know there's some work going on with respect to the Boulder Valley Ice and trying to get something kicked off there, so I appreciate that's part of it. But I think as far as educating the public to say, hey, we can go forward with one of three options. One is buy the space for open space, which I don't think there's nearly enough money given the use and the annexation and everything else like that, plus the agreements that we have with Louisville associated with the park. So that's a non-starter. The other things that are going to happen is some board someday may come in and build a strip mall or another power center should the economies be right. The other one is, and all these things has been proposed, the other one is someone comes in and puts in 1,000 apartments with nothing to be gained. Or the third one is the thing that the board and staff have been trying to articulate for the last few years, which is, if you're going to have one, let's try to get the amenities, the town center, some of the shops, some of the things that we want to see in the town. And I think we need to start educating people, and those are the three options that are going to happen, whether we like it or not. There are three options that are going to happen. Some board's going to come in and maybe not have the vision that some of you guys have as far as building something that's going to get us something in return, as opposed to, hey, put a car dealership out there or whatever else, which may have been proposed in the past. We've heard Walmart's in there. We've seen multiplexes like Horizon go in there, none of which get the town really anything. Let's figure out a way to get the town and the residents something. And I think, kind of at the end of this downturn, but we really need to be educating and articulating that vision to the public, and I'm not seeing that, and I really hope that we can start spending more time on that instead of some of the smaller things that kind of dominate the day-to-day, if you will.
You and Trustee Roosevelt have a psychic connection, so I just want to share that with you. And I think that the public education process is important, and I believe that the town manager is putting together perhaps a pertinent issue. I don't remember what the name of it was.
Citizen guide?
Citizen guide.
I'm still waiting for feedback. I've had one of the board members respond.
You have my feedback.
And I don't take pride in ownership that the 11 identified topics are the only ones.
And I think my feedback was that it was important to re-educate the public about where the town board was expressing actually the vision that you, I believe, support as well. So.
Okay.
It's tough in the economy.
Good coffee buzz discussion. Right?
There you go.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Additional public comment.
George Guthrie, 109 South 4th. You mentioned about the Urban Renewal Authority and Coal Creek. Could I get more information on this?
Urban drainage. Not urban renewal. Urban drainage and flood control district. Yeah.
Renewal. Okay. Where can I get more information on that?
Well, the way to get that would be through the Urban Drainage and Flood Control District offices, which are in Denver. I believe the process, or you could connect. Could connect perhaps with somebody at town staff, perhaps in Public Works. But I believe the process right now is that we're in the design phase about what to do with Coal Creek in terms of drainage and flood control.
I'd like to see what.
Yeah, and I don't think it's. You could come to the mic if you like, but I believe that design is still in process.
If they got it over there, I'll stop over and see what they got.
Perhaps the Public Works Director would like to spend a brief moment to talk about that.
Kurt Carr, Public Works Director. We just selected a consultant for the design on that, and we're working through the scope. Probably early next year we'll start a public process to communicate, really to start taking in ideas, explain the problem, taking ideas, and then work to a design.
Great.
That's that.
Thanks.
Secondly, an ex-mayor, John Kuffner, suggested me to suggest to the board that he has a couple big lots down there that he would sell to go along with his Matson property if you were interested. It's along the creek, and it has had other things on it. It's pretty clear it's got fences on it right now, but he did volunteer that property if you wished.
We should actually talk about this offline because we've had some discussion about buying properties that are in the floodplain, and if his property is potentially could be in the floodplain, some of that might be could be purchased, and we could partner with urban drainage, but it totally depends on where that property is.
It's all connected with.
So
I'll get with him. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment on consent agenda or non-agenda items? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 6, presentations. I don't believe we have any for the evening. Item number 7, consent agenda, and on the consent agenda is the approval of the minutes of the October 12, 2009 meeting, acceptance of the minutes of the Historical Commission and Open Space Advisory Committee meetings, and a preliminary reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 8 of the Superior Municipal Code regarding certain electric vehicles. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Trustee Skumat, second by Trustee D'Souza. Discussion? Trustee Skumat?
My question had to do with 7C, which I just wanted to confirm what was going to happen with the other possible kinds of transportation and what the timeline was for that. I thought that would be good to update the board on sort of where the others sit.
Board's guidance as a result of your last two workshop sessions, at which times you talked about NEVs, were the town was interested in enabling the use of off-road alternative energy vehicles at this point in time. Trails, bike paths, and sidewalks. So the ordinance you have before you have to do with the electric-powered bicycles and segways. The board's other guidance was they wanted to wait and see what other communities within the Front Range were doing until they dealt with on-road alternative energy vehicles. We're the first ones to be discussing it. As I indicated in our previous discussions, many of the mountain towns have been dealing with on-road use, but we are pretty much at the forefront of on-road use in this particular area. So it was my game plan that bringing it back in 6, 8, 9 months and saying 3 or 4 other communities have decided to do this, this, and this, and then the board give us guidance at that point in time.
Thanks.
We're not. Sometimes we like to be cutting edge, like on medical marijuana. Sometimes we like to see what the neighbors are doing, and it sounded like you wanted to see what the neighbors were doing on this one.
I just think it's nice to remember that.
And we are specifically talking about like golf cart electric vehicles.
Right. And we took the comments that we heard over the course of the 2 workshop sessions that there were probably some local conditions, i.e. age of drivers, maybe some special modifications, those kinds of things. But
Safety equipment.
yeah, seatbelts and the like, yeah. Hours of operation, dusk and dawn, that kind of stuff.
Colorado managers talking about any of that? Okay.
A lot of talk about medical marijuana, but not
Is
on
that right?
NEVs.
Okay. Trustee Cirelli? You've raised
Oh,
your
yeah,
hand, I believe.
I won't be voting on the minutes of the October 12th meeting.
Okay. Additional comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Unanimous, thank you very much. With that, we move on to item number 8, which is the public hearing and approval of the 2010 budget's final approval of an ordinance and adoption of resolutions for the town and all our other municipal operations. So with that, I'd like to open the public hearing. And Phyllis, do you have proof of publication?
I do. I wanted to say that I have one for the town, for the Superior McCaslin Energy Metropolitan District, the Superior Urban Renewal Authority, and the Superior Metropolitan District.
Great. And before Mr. Randall, I'd just like to say that once again, for the record, I have greatly appreciated all the work that the finance staff has put into doing this. They do a tremendous amount of work, and the presentations that they do have been fantastic. And Mr. Randall, please pass along my sincere appreciation for that. So with that, Mr. Randall.
Very briefly, I'll start with the budget process. As you know, the departments actually began the preparation of the budget document that's in front of you back in May. Their submissions were due very end of May. We spent the entire months of June and July in what we call the Budget Review Committee, consisting of 4 staff members, Mr. Magley, myself, Mr. Nillis, and Mr. Stone, reviewing the departmental submissions, submitting back preliminary budgets, giving departments opportunities to appeal and negotiate numbers within those, ultimately coming up with a proposed manager's budget. Also throughout that process, we did consult with each of the advisory boards and commissions during the month of July to make sure that any of their projects and wishes were included at least in the consideration of the proposed budget document. You did receive the manager's recommended budget on August 3rd. The town board and the finance committee reviewed and over 6 or 7 hours on 2 different evenings on August 31st and on September 26th. And after public hearing tonight and receiving all additional public comment, we're recommending your final consideration tonight. As you indicated in reading the cover, the agenda, there are actually 6 different budgets that the town has as a result of its multiple hats. You've got the town, you've got SMID, you've got SURA, you've got SMD1, SMD2, and SMD3. All of the actions tonight, there are actually 9 action items, 1 ordinance, and 8 resolutions. But to the crux of what is before you. The budgets before you tonight call for total expenditures in FY 2010 of $33.8 million. That's up about $888,000 or 2.7% from a year ago. However, again, because there are 6 different budgets, the general fund is down $160,000 or 1.7%. The CIP is down $1.3 million or 36%, predominantly because we had the extraordinary investment in streets last year at almost $3 million, and it's down to closer to 1.8 this year. A huge increase in open space budget, up $2 million or 66%. That's predominantly a change in budgeting philosophy. OSAC had specifically requested, rather than identifying potential acquisitions, that all available fund balance in the open space fund be set aside in the land acquisition column. Finance and the board have previously said that's fine. We know how much money is available. The fact that it either sits in the fund balance or it sits as an appropriated sum. This year we're going in the appropriated sum. And again, that's more than a $2 million change. The landscape fee fund is down over $100,000 or almost 3%. The SMID, the Superior Metropolitan Improvement District, which is the interchange area, is up $650,000 or almost 200%, and that's a result of our anticipated improvements to the northeastern loop. We anticipate spending design money in the coming year to design the northeastern loop. There's over $8 million, almost $9 million included in the entire spending plan for capital improvements. That's more than it accounts for about 26% of total expenditures. While it's not germane to the FY 2010 budget, you have a 5-year financial plan which includes $42 million in capital improvements over the next 5 years. As the board knows, there are no changes in personnel. We've had a reduction in full-time staffing in the last 2 years. We're down at 25 full-time employees. We have 5 permanent part-time employees, and we do have a cadre of summer and seasonal, most of which are pool-related employees. But no change in staffing, and that is included over the entire 5-year projection. Revenues. The town does have 4 property tax levies. The town levy is proposed to remain flat at 8.05 mils, no change over where it has been. It is anticipated that will raise $1.3 million, which is the same amount that the town has levied and collected over the course of the last 2 years. SMD2, which is the area north of Colton, will see a modest property tax reduction of 0.05 mils to 6.75. SMD3, which is south of Colton Road, will see a reduction of 1/10 of a mil from 6.5 to 6.4. And the 4th area where we levy a property tax, which again is within the Superior Metropolitan Improvement District, predominantly the area of Superior Marketplace, which has a mill levy of 35 mils, and that's not proposed to change. The budget does include some fee increases, the most notable of which is a recommended 4% increase in water rates. The average increase for an average residential consumer within the town would be $18 a year, $1.53 per month. The third of 3-phased increase in liquor licenses. We started it in 2008 when the state legislature authorized an increase in licenses, 2008, 2009. The last phase would be in 2010. And some nominal increases in some of our Parks and Rec rental fees and fees associated with the pool punch pass for non-residents. Of note, I would point out, because it's one of our more significant funds, there's no change in the landscape fee. That's the $20, $25, or $30 add-on to the residential utility bills. That fee has stayed flat since 2007. There will be no increase, and right now our long-term financial projections show that there would not be any adjustment in that fee until 2013. With that entree, we'd be glad to answer any questions, but it would also be appropriate to solicit any public comment.
Thank you. Questions from the board about any of these budgets? Trustee Skomats.
The only comment I was make is that we might consider the suggestion of changing the name of the element related to Community Park East to make it seem less dedicated.
Okay. Trustee D'Souza?
And it's just a comment because I didn't jump on this soon enough about the landscape fee, but it has been brought up to me again about the possibility of making that a property tax instead of just because of the different sizes of neighborhoods. So it might be a little premature, but for next year's discussion, it might be something to bring up again.
You may also want to consider who's in and who's out.
And how to reduce it.
So, a question for the town manager. So you noted that our general revenue is down. I don't remember the number now off the top of my head, but
General fund budget is down $160,000, 1.7% from 2009 to 2010. We've just tightened our belt. As you know, the town implemented what I referred to as a contingency budget on March 1st earlier this year. As a result of recognizing significant trends, we anticipated a reduction of almost $600,000 in budgeted revenues between sales tax, vehicle use tax, and interest income. We adjusted to that. We cut expenses in March. We will live with it. We will end the current year with a balanced budget. We'll be in the black, no spending down of reserves. And as a result of that experience, there were numerous things that we identified that if we could live with it in 2009, we could maintain that level, and that's why expenses are going to be down 160 next year as a result.
So thank you about being proactive along that. I had a concern. I think that and I appreciate the efforts given here. I think some of the reduction, and you please correct me if I'm wrong, is reduced travel and or training for staff. I know that we need to balance the budget, but I would also, if we can find some money somewhere or if revenue is up somehow, I think that's really a critical element for both staff training as well as satisfaction. So,
we froze travel and training in 2009. Froze it as of March 1st. Mm-hmm. There have been no town-paid for educational, professional development opportunities since March 1. The budget does include restoring those funds in 2010. That's not the area. But we were able to identify a number of, whether it was contractual relations, a number of areas where we were able to identify savings. Professional development is not one of them.
Okay, thanks very much. So I misunderstood that. Other questions from the board? Okay, I'd like to entertain any public comment about the budget, and it's somewhat complex because we have so many different budgets that we're going to talk about, so feel free to go in any particular order that you might like to do so. So this would be a great time for public comment. Anyone? Oh, let's see. Our former budget aficionado, welcome.
Jeff Chu, 1959 Cedar Ridge Circle. It was actually fun looking at one of Paul's budgets again, although I didn't have as much time to look through it like you guys did on the budget committee and going through every line item. Just one or two quick thoughts on this. One is, I noticed one number, as we start trying to plan out a park and we start looking at the budgets and costs associated with the parks and things like that, I guess maybe a question, or if I was in your position, you may be interesting to kind of go back and look at some previous estimates for both O&M and revenue generation and other things on previous parks that we've done to see how they've matched up. That would help as you look forward to Community Park East, or whatever you choose to call it, or hopefully wherever you choose to put it, which is not Community Park East. But, one item that I noticed was the facility fees. I think the target moving out is about $40,000. And I thought, and I think the year-to-date as of the end of June was about $17,000 or something like that. But, and I recall, like, even on when we did the original planning for the turf field, that alone was going to generate about $40,000 or $50,000, if I recall. Now, I could be wrong on the numbers there, but to me, that says some of the budget stuff that we look at, we need to be careful that we're not painting a rosy picture to get a project done and then not living up to those expectations. I think we need to make sure that those things happen in reality, like we say they're going to happen. I mean, I think just like any of the other capital projects we've said in the past, it's important to go look back and say how much really was spent and, compare to the initial estimates. And I don't know whether an assessment ever got made of evaluating previous projects. So might want to look at those things as you kind of go forward on future projects, especially if we're anticipating some other new big projects. I think, Trustee Skumat's mentioned changing the name. I know it really helps to kind of list items because it helps define the budget, but I think for things that have such a public awareness out there, like the parks and things, it might be better, especially if you start looking in 2012 and you're doing a long-range plan that Mr. Nellis is very good at, to not necessarily call that a certain item and be a little more generic in what it is. Maybe some of the notes and things like that talk about what it potentially could be used for, but the published budget itself does not have a specific earmark per se. I think that throws people off there. I did not get a chance, and I forgot to look to know whether there's any money for the economic development pieces. And just since Trustee Rosenfeld is not here, I will give the plug there to make sure that there is money to start promoting and trying to educate. Again, it's very, very important that we move forward. I feel like we've missed a year and a half, 18 months in this economic downturn of maybe not doing as much education as we can to pick up if the economy comes out this year, next year, year after, to be ready to go, up and running. We always find ourselves in an off cycle of education versus everyone moving fast. Last one was sort of a question. It looked like, and maybe maybe Mr. Randall mentioned that. I guess the capital projects looked very far down compared to 2009. Something on I don't remember, it was less than half of. And I was under the impression that we were sort of doing a regular expenditure on a yearly basis as part of the road improvement plan, and maybe that's changed where it's going to be a lot more every other year kind of thing, but I'm not sure if that's the plan.
No. So, excellent question, and Mr. Randall, could you address that particular issue?
Yes. In 2009, we budgeted $2.9 million for our street improvement project. As the board knows, we significantly expanded the service area, almost did 3 times the amount of streets that we originally intended to do, and we did it for less than $2 million. That was because we just got great bids in early spring when the oil prices had hit a low of $42 a barrel. As a result of that reshuffling of the priorities, we have projects that are scheduled for 2010, but the projects that are scheduled based on the priority system, which includes most significantly the reconstruction of Indiana from Colton to El Dorado, has a total cost of $1.8 million. So we're not throwing a fixed amount of money at street improvements. We've prioritized all of our streets, put them out over a 13-year cycle, and said this is what we need to spend in each of these particular years. This happens to be a year that we're going from 2.9 to 1.8.
Okay.
So, I think it's an excellent point, though, because the town for a long time has not been very proactive in its ongoing maintenance issues, and so we're trying to get into that cycle, and so the town manager and other staff members have sort of brought us along in getting into continuous upkeep of our facilities. So, but it's an excellent point.
No, very good. It's something definitely needed. So, I just again encourage you to go back and look at some of the dollars and cents of things in the past and see where they fall going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Bob McCool, 312 West Coal Creek Drive. Just want to talk once again, last chance here, about the Town 9 Park. And I'd like to ask, looking at the budget, it doesn't appear that anything has changed. There's still $0 in 2010 for the Town 9 Park. And as I've said before, improvements have been being made, and they look good so far. But the park is one big open area. And in general, kids don't play in big open areas. We'll go out and fly a kite for a little while. That's nice. There's lots of room out there to do that, or to fly an airplane. Talking with our town manager the other day, I was telling him that what the kids like, or where they play over there, is in the tree well of the one tree that sits out in the middle of the field. That's where they play. They play in the park area up where Children's Park was moved up because there's structures to play around. They play around the restrooms and they play around the bushes. The field is what it is. That's what it's there for. It's for games and a big field. But the rest of the park is just a big open grassy area. It's not going to get much use. And so I'd like to ask that you consider putting some money in the budget to start some planning and trying to get the community back involved to think about what we can do with Town 9 Park, try to get something designed and then hopefully budgeted over the next few years to create a park that's fun for the kids to play in. Because at this point, again, great improvements have been made. It's the sidewalks around. We're scootering around it. That's very cool. And the soft trail around, people are running on. But the park is just a big grassy area that's not going to get much use. And I'd really like to see the board take some initiative over the next few years to try to get that turned into a cool place, whether it's basketball courts, a backstop for a baseball field, as George has brought up, or Daryl, my wife has mentioned, has come up with some cool ideas for there's new park designs that are creating more natural areas for kids to get involved in and play in, like tree wells and structures and things like that kind of engage the kids. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Additional public comment? More board comments or questions for staff? Trustee Schumann?
I think the idea of trying to decide just what it is that should be done, a more useful and interactive design for Town 9, I endorse that. I assume that can be fit in with some of the things within the budget, but if not, I'd like to.
I'd clarify that the budget does envision some future investment of undisclosed nature. But of $150,000 is included in the 5-year financial plan for investment in Town 9.
And how much of it in this year?
None. It's 13 and 14. It's based on the priorities of your pro stack.
Additional board comment? I see more public comment coming forward, but Mr. Payne.
Jim Payne, 2475 Clayton Circle. ProStack is, first of all, over the last 4 or 5 years, a total of $600,000 has gone into that park. As all of you know, there were at one time anticipated some funds from a development of Coal Creek Crossing that didn't materialize. So at this point, it's been essentially finished in its current stage as a neighborhood park. However, ProStack, we do have monies earmarked in the CTF, Conservation Trust Fund budget, for Town 9. And in our work plan that we'll be presenting to you, we will be looking at that as an important part of our project for 2010, is to look at a comprehensive look at what the next steps are in Town 9. So we're very well aware of that. We appreciate, one thing we haven't gotten is input into ProStack on what people would like to see. So there have been some random comments before you, but so in 2010 we're going to have a comprehensive look at getting community input on what those next steps should be in Town 9.
Okay.
So we appreciate any input.
Thank you.
So that was going to be my particular comment, because ProStack wasn't really doing too much recently, so if you could find some extra time to work on a work plan for the Town 9 Park, I think that would make sense. And honestly, I think the concept, at least personally, the concept that Ms. McCool has brought forward have been very interesting to me. I think I've supported that actually particular design concept in the past, and I think that would be, it's low maintenance. I think it has a whole bunch of positive attributes, and once again, kids of that particular age are, they play on the swing for 5 minutes and then they're doing something else. So
Is that
sort of the natural concepts of that area, and I think that makes a whole bunch of sense. But premature, I think, to move down that direction. But working on that in 2010, I think, would be helpful.
Thank you.
Additional public comment, board questions or comments? I had one other one. So there was a discussion about the property tax, putting the landscape fee into property tax. We have talked about that in the past, and I don't think it's going to go there. Just so this is the reason why, is that when we've looked at it in the past, what happens is that even though you get a tax break for moving the landscape fee into as a property tax, you take a big hit from the apartment complex because of how it's assessed, and so that they end up paying a whole bunch less, and everybody else pays a whole bunch more, which is just a factor of their assessment rate. So, but you know, we can always certainly could talk about that in the future. Yes,
it's still one of those.
So I'm getting ready to close the public hearing. I just want to make sure there's no more questions or
I did
comments.
have a question.
Trustee Sorelli.
In my not having a life, I got to stream your last meeting.
My condolences to
This
you.
afternoon. My condolences to any citizen who has to do that regularly. But there was a comment brought up about the support to the Chamber of Commerce.
Yes.
And is there nothing going on there, or what?
Thank you. Actually, I forgot about it. Mr. Randall, can you explain what the particular issue is?
The town has, for many years, I can't tell you how long, but for many years has been providing an annual subsidy to the Chamber of Commerce in the amount of $15,000. At one point, when I first got here, that represented about a third of their budget. I understand it now represents closer to a quarter of their budget because of some other revenue-generating capacity. The budget before you anticipates and calls for a $1,000 reduction in 2010. The long-term plan shows a $1,000 annual reduction. However, so that's what's in the financial plan. 15 would become 14 in the coming year. So we're talking about $1,000. The premise behind that weaning, if you will, of the large town subsidy of that one particular organization was it is hoped that they would become the successor organization for the new community event after it gets up and running. And the plan, the design was that becomes their financial engine, if you will, rather than the town's annual subsidy. We're obviously still a member. We're still a significant, in fact, I think even at ultimately getting to the point of $10,000, it's twice as much as what their platinum or premium or premier membership is. So, but that was the dialogue, or that was the discussion, that was the thought process that went into it. And it was just one of the many things we did to balance the budget this year, was to say that was one aspect that we thought we would be able to start, not just changing it, rather than that's just the way we've always done it. And I communicated that with their board of directors, as a matter of fact, this morning. And Heather and I had lengthy discussion about it last week. There were other things brought up about sponsorships. We contracted with them 2 years ago to avoid donor fatigue, so we contracted through the chamber and said, you raise the money. I only have one person going and hitting the same, small pool of businesses that we have within our community. And then we came up with a revenue sharing agreement on how that money should be split. This year we modified it because they took a significant hit in their sponsorship revenue generating capacities. I don't see linkage between that. We're able to deal with the sponsorship separately. If they don't want to do it for us anymore, we can certainly resume it. But there's not linkage between our annual subsidy.
Thank you.
I guess my comments about that is, the chamber has been an important organization in our town. It's been very helpful, and, we talked about economic development, and they're, part of that toolkit.
They've been a strong ambassador for us, especially on the business retention side.
So I'm certainly willing to see the reduction, but if there's any concern that, that's going to cause consternation, difficulties doing the plans that they have to implement in 2010, I'd love to hear back that, we could modify our budget or find some money someplace else. So I think it's an important organization that we need to continue to support. So.
Yeah. And I shared that, again, with their board of directors this morning. Like we did this year, when they took a significant hit, they lost one of their major advertisers, sponsors, and as a result couldn't meet their contractual commitment to us. And we made an adjustment very, very early in the year to accommodate and recognize that. Certainly, we have the ability to do that in the future as well.
Okay. Trustee Skumats.
And I'd rather see their budget kept constant until and if this special event thing changes their situation. I wouldn't like to reduce it before this is an actual happens.
Okay. So I think the two issues that we have not completely closed, sorry, I'm having contact malfunction, so I don't need to be. Two issues that we
winking at everybody out in the audience, is that it?
Two issues that we haven't then closed on is the naming of the park issue in the budget and then the Chamber of Commerce. So my only thinking about the naming of the park is that I think it was really good. I mean, I'm open to anything. I don't have strong feelings about this one way or the other. It was nice that it was in the budget, caused a whole bunch of public consternation, and had a whole bunch of people come down here. So in a way, it was actually productive. Maybe didn't cause happy thoughts, but it had a whole bunch of people come down here. But if people are but if the board feels strongly one way or the other, then I don't have any particular opinion one way or the other. So anybody would like to discuss that, Trustee Skumats?
I guess if you're looking for a motion, I'd like to see us. I'd like to move to change that title to Park Amenities.
I was just going to say the same thing.
Okay, so
Future park amenities.
we're in the middle
Already
of
done.
Yeah.
Done.
So that would be public. That would be staff direction.
It was.
All right,
Yeah.
staff direction.
And the other one had to do with the chamber.
Yes, I'd like to see us restore that $1,000.
Thoughts about that?
Well, I'm just wondering, where is it coming from? If we put it back in, where would that be
Right.
coming from?
Your proposed budget, as it stands, has a projected fund balance in 2010 of a whopping $8,621. It would be $7,621.
That would be 76.
That sounds doable.
Let's hope there's no inflation.
Okay, so
I would second that.
Yeah,
all right, so take that as staff direction as well. So, and I can't think of any other particular issue. Trustee Williams.
Sorry. Do we want to re-look at Town 9 being pushed out to 2013?
My particular recommendation about that would be to Town 9, would be to have a staff plan, a post-act plan about what we would see. So I think that's a little premature to do that. So, and look at that at the next year's budget cycle. Trustee D'Souza.
However, I would like to say, as far as Town 9, I mean, we have spent quite a bit of money
Yes.
on Town 9 already, but we have also talked about finishing it. We did have a lot of community events where we got a lot of public input on it, and one of the reasons that we did kind of keep pushing it off is because we're waiting for development. You know, I mean, I don't think that, I would rather see something happen before 2013 on that, so.
Yeah. Okay. Trustee Skumats.
Yeah, I agree. I'd like to see it planned and done as soon as possible, and 2013 seems too far. But if we get a good plan, let's hear the advice from the advisory committee and figure out how to move forward on it.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
Anything else? I'm getting ready to gavel. Watch out. So, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. So with that, if everybody is ready, I think we'll just work off this sheet here.
Please.
Made a small change to the one that Trustee Skumats
Oh, yes, change. Okay.
otherwise pretty.
All right. So I close the public hearings for all these entities. So with that, Trustee Skumats.
I'd like to make a motion. Resolution number R-56, Series 2009, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior levying general property taxes for the year 2010.
Motion by Trustee Skumats, second by Trustee D'Souza. Discussion. Let's see. Probably have to have a roll call.
You spending on it?
You want roll call on this?
Yes.
Spending.
We're not spending, but just to humor me, please.
It's important to keep the attorney happy.
Thank you.
Yes.
Skumats?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes?
Gaguris?
Yes.
D'Souza?
Yes.
Cirelli?
Yes.
Thank you very much. That motion carries. Trustee Skumatz?
I'd like to make another motion. I'd like to make a motion, I'd like to move resolution number R-57, Series 2009, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior adopting a budget for the Town of Superior for the calendar year beginning on the first day of January 2010 and ending on the last day of December 2010.
Motion by Trustee Skumatz, second by Trustee Sorelli. Wow, we got dueling.
It's quick.
Discussion. All in favor? Well, roll call, I guess. Just
Yeah.
Williams,
Yes.
Skumatz,
Yes.
Muckle,
Yes.
Gregoris,
Yes.
D'Souza,
Yes.
Sorelli.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries. Trustee Skumatz?
I'd like to move resolution number R-58, Series 2009, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior approving a budget and levying the debt service property taxes for Superior Metropolitan Districts number 2 and 3 for the year 2010.
Motion by Trustee Skumatz, second by Trustee Gregoris.
We missed some.
We missed something?
Go ahead. We'll come back.
We'll come back.
Oh,
Read it all.
okay. Motion and a second. Oh, sorry, we're just working off this particular one,
Yeah.
Okay.
just for ease.
Okay.
Was there a particular
We're
clarification?
doing what Phyllis told us to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's always, well, we'd
Okay,
like to
go
make the
ahead.
attorney happy. We
No,
always
no,
do
keep
what
going.
Phyllis tells us.
You're on a roll.
to do.
Keep going. We'll catch the other ones at the end.
Motion and a second. Phyllis?
D'Souza,
Yes.
Sorelli,
Yes.
Gregoris,
Yes.
Muckle,
Yes.
Skumatz,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
That motion carries. Trustee Skumatz?
I'd like to move ordinance number O-14, Series 2009, an ordinance of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior appropriating sums of money to the various funds and spending agencies in the amounts and for the purposes as set forth below for the Town of Superior, Colorado for the 2010 budget year.
Motion by Trustee Skumatz, second by Trustee D'Souza.
okay, Sorelli,
Yes.
D'Souza,
Aye.
Gregoris,
I too.
Muckle,
Yes.
Skumatz,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Trustee Skumatz?
I'd like to move
We
resolution...
missed number,
We'll get
No, we didn't yet. I was told to reverse them.
We're doing what we're told to do.
Okay. I'd like to move resolution number R-59, Series 2009, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior approving fees for 2010.
Motion by Trustee Skumatz, second by Trustee D'Souza. Wow. Phyllis?
Sorelli,
Yes.
D'Souza,
Yes.
Gregoris,
yes.
Muckle,
Yes.
Skumatz,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Motion carries. Trustee Skumatz?
Do we have to be a different agency or anything?
We're all,
Keep moving.
just
We
keep
didn't have
on
to
moving.
change
Yeah,
ourselves.
we're all part of the,
All right, resolution number SMID, SMID 2, Series 2009, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Superior McCaslin Interchange Metropolitan District adopting a budget, levying general property taxes, and appropriating sums of money in the amounts and for the purposes as set forth below for the year 2010.
motion by Director Skumatz, second by Director Williams. Discussion? Phyllis?
oh, where do I start? Williams,
Yes.
Skumatz,
Yes.
Muckle,
Yes.
Gregoris,
Yes.
D'Souza,
Yes.
Sorelli.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Skumatz?
I'd like to move resolution number SURA, SURA 2, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Superior Urban Renewal Authority adopting a budget and appropriating sums of money in the amounts and for the purposes as set forth below for the Superior Urban Renewal Authority for the 2010 budget year.
Motion by Commissioner Skumatz, second by Commissioner D'Souza. Phyllis?
Gregoris,
Yes.
Muckle,
Yes.
Skumatz,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Sorelli,
Aye.
D'Souza,
Yes.
Motion carries. Let's see, we are at
Director.
Director Skumatz.
I'd like to move resolution number SMD number 1 through 6, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Superior Metropolitan District number 1 adopting a budget and appropriating sums of money in the amounts and for the purposes as set forth below for Superior Metropolitan District number 1 for the 2010 budget year.
Motion by Director Skumatz, second by Director Gregoris. Discussion? Favor?
okay, Sorelli,
Yes.
D'Souza,
Yes.
Gregoris,
Oui, oui.
Do we have a translator?
Can you do it once you guys are awake?
We need an official
I can
translation.
do Greek next time.
Okay.
I just have the budget.
Skumatz,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
All right, that motion carries.
I'm sorry, I fell asleep
Motion by
there.
Director Skumatz.
I'd like to move resolution number SMD number 1-7, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Superior Metropolitan District Number 1 amending the district's rules and regulations by adoption of a new Appendix A to the rules and regulations.
You can do this by voice vote if you like.
No, it's too fun so far.
I want to hear the Greek.
Motion by Director Skumatz, second by Director Williams. Okay.
Williams.
Okay.
Skumatz.
Yes.
Muckle.
Yes.
D'Souza.
Yeah.
Gregoris.
I'm not going to do it in Greek.
Greek and they can
No,
Say it and then
because the
translate.
Greek word is ne, it sounds like no, so I just want to, see, we, whatever. Yes.
Cirilli.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you once again, town staff, for all their hard work. Mr. Randall?
Very briefly, and it's an item that I missed. It is on your look-ahead, but because it has received such interest, one of the items that it will be on your next workshop session is the preliminary engineering for the Sagamore drainage. Just wanted to let you know that will be discussed or reviewed at the first meeting in November after a lengthy Transportation Safety Committee and something to eat.
Okay. Anything else to come before the board tonight? Seeing none, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.